on election night, that it would
This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin FREAKIN.
Welcome back to part 2 of our Election Night 2020 stream. Hopefully that'll fix our issues and we won't be stuttering anymore. Give the computer a little refresh. Also, I'm not broadcasting out to a bunch of unknown streaming platforms anymore. We're just doing the big ones. So back to our PBS dual USA Today map coverage.
These are questions. Yeah, that's right. These are.
I don't think anything happened in the few minutes that I was away from you.
All right, thank you all to Mark, David, Jonathan.
But if something did, please let me know. I was microwaving a piece of salmon.
We do want to stress, as we have, especially early in the evening,
that I cooked last
there have
night.
been many eyes on this election, a lot of effort to shield this election from foreign interference and to put processes in place to ensure that this election is safe and that the vote is secure. And to add more context tonight, Nina Jankowicz joins us now. She studies disinformation campaigns at the Wilson Center. It's a nonpartisan think tank. She's also the author of How to Lose the Information War. Also joining us, Nate Persily. He's an election law expert and professor at Stanford Law School. So to both of you, I'll start with you, Nate. Tell me, what are you looking, when I last spoke with you, it's been a couple of hours ago, you were keeping an eye. At that point, you didn't see anything of concern, but there was a lot to watch. What have you seen in the interim?
Well, I think we need to prepare ourselves for several days of waiting and arguments over the count. I think that, there was not a knockout punch that was thrown by either candidate in these first hours after polls close. This does cause concern if you are people like me and Nina who study disinformation and thinking about what these next few days may look like as there's debate over the absentee ballots in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. But
now that's what producer Dave has been talking about. The misinformation that's going to
that this is a different type of election because
just deluge
so many absentee
Facebook
ballots.
starting tonight.
Start learning about new terms about curing absentee ballots and provisional ballots. We've already seen 2 lawsuits filed by the Republicans in Pennsylvania. It is not in Bush versus Gore territory yet, but we need to be patient and make sure that all the votes are counted.
And to Nina, I'd ask you to pick up on that, but also to talk about disinformation and to what extent it could play a role in the days to come. We certainly hope it doesn't, but the more time that passes between the end of voting and when we're able to know the winner, it seems to me the more opportunities there are for mischief.
Absolutely, Judy. That's a huge vulnerability in the way that this election is going to play out this year. And frankly, we're already seeing some fringe political websites as well as a few foreign overt propaganda websites starting to pick up on this vulnerability, projecting winners too early, not using the same sorts of editorial practices that, for instance, the NewsHour or the AP do. And that's very dangerous because it presents one picture and then allows another side to claim that perhaps that results are rigged, which is a narrative that we've seen coming up over and over. But overall, we haven't seen the level of foreign interference that we saw in 2016.
So AP has still yet to call Florida, despite the fact that 2 different news outlets under the Fox umbrella have called Florida.
But at this point in 2016, we didn't really know the depth and breadth of foreign interference, and we are so much more polarized. We have so much more domestic disinformation this year that all of that is just being amplified by foreign actors as well.
Yeah, no question about it. And you're right, the polarization makes it worse. So, Nate, personally, given that and given the fact, as we're now discussing, this could drag on for several more days, at least hours, at least into tomorrow, and possibly into Thursday. I'm very reluctant to make any forecast here. What is it that you're going to be keeping a particularly close eye on?
Well, the first thing we're looking at are the totals as they come in. Even if you put yourself in the kind of litigation mindset of 20 years ago, the most important question or variable has always been sort of what do the vote totals look at the bottom of the screen. Now, again, we are not there yet, and I think that we need to trust the process. There are state laws that deal with close elections. There are state laws that deal with absentee ballots. We've had quite a bit of litigation before this election, which is actually helpful because it helped clarify some of those rules on various issues, say in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And so there's a legal framework that needs to be followed. And in the coming days, you're going to see it both at the administrative level and then also in court.
And Nina Jankowicz, what signals need to be sent in terms of potential foreign interference? We certainly hope it doesn't grow. It's not anything significant. But what signals could be sent from Washington, should be sent from Washington, to say to foreign actors, stay away while we figure out who the winner of this election is?
Well, we've already seen election security officials giving hints that perhaps they were pushing away different cyber actors, state cyber actors like Russia and Iran, hobbling their operations ahead of Election Day. I do think it's important, particularly in this context, though, that we understand Election Day as an inflection point and not an end point. So hopefully they're hobbled to the extent that their cyber operations can't be brought back online in the coming days. But I would also caution, all of the viewers out there and and Nick Schifrin mentioned this at the top of the program many hours ago, that there's the possibility for perception hacking. So for an adversary to give the idea that something has been compromised, a website or something like that, to deface those websites, that doesn't affect the vote counting and the vote total. So I think that perception hacking is the biggest vulnerability in the coming days, and we should all be very aware of that and keep our guard up and share information from trusted sources, and if possible, the official sources.
Very, very good advice for all of us, and not only for people watching, but of course for journalists as well. Nina Jankowicz, Nate Persily, we thank you both, and we will obviously certainly be coming back to you as we watch these calls get made, and as we continue to watch for any sort of interference, that unwelcome interference. Right now, I want to go back to Amna Nawaz. Amna, we are, as I feel like a broken record, but we're saying it over and over again. There are a lot of races we're not able to call yet. We just don't have the information. And I think it's important for people to know that
Amna Nawaz is a really cool name.
AP, we depend on, is not rushing to do that, but to remind everybody how the AP makes those decisions.
So much cooler than Justin
I wanted to
Freakin.
go in on a couple of states where I know we've been waiting on results, Judy, and this is the point of the night at which we could rewind to the top of the night and say, oh, if only we knew then what we know now. We thought Florida and Arizona could give us some early indication of where the night would go. They have a long history of early voting and counting that fast. The fact that we don't have results from either yet is an indication of just how tight those races are. So the AP is being very transparent. They say in Florida specifically what they're waiting for is more information coming from South Florida. That's the area of Miami-Dade County, of course, the largest county in the state. You've heard a number of guests weigh in on what we're seeing there so far. We don't yet have enough information there for the AP to make a call, so we will wait on that, and when we have that, report that out. But of course, 29 electoral votes at stake there in Florida, and maybe not likely to come through tonight. Arizona as well, AP's being very transparent and saying what they're waiting on right now, what they don't have enough information on, is the same day vote. Now remember, Arizona saw the same surge in early voting a lot of other states saw. Young voters in particular turned out. They voted in larger numbers early in Arizona than they did in all of 2016, but the same day vote is what's holding up AP from making a call right now. Judy, we cannot stress enough, this doesn't mean anything is wrong. This is just the process unfolding the way it's supposed to. The math and the facts are going to lead the way.
And in every one of these states, it's a different set of circumstances.
Iowa now leaning Trump
by virtue of how many people
by about 50,000 votes.
And so many other factors. But as you mentioned, it's Florida, it's Arizona, it's certainly Georgia, it's North Carolina, it's Pennsylvania.
Speaking of Georgia,
it's Wisconsin.
75% of the vote. Hasn't moved much.
For all we know, we may get a call on one of these any second now, but at this hour, I'm looking at the clock.
A little less than 300,000 votes. Trump is up.
We don't have those calls.
Keep in mind, Atlanta is the last
confident they have enough information.
holdout.
All right, Amna, thank you. And so let's turn now to two people who are in the middle of the country. I love that expression, in the middle of the country. Gary Abernathy is contributing columnist for the Washington Post. He joins us from Cincinnati. Patricia Lopez is an editorial writer for the
That's
Star
not really the middle of the country.
St. Paul, Minnesota. Gary Abernathy.
That's more in the middle.
A few hours ago about how things are looking. We've been talking since then about
North middle.
the fact that not only is it's not a landslide for Joe Biden, this is a process that's going to take longer. We don't know who the winner of the presidential election is going to be, but we are learning something about, if you will, the Trump base and the Biden base, whatever it is. How do you
Biden doesn't really have a base.
focus?
People were voting against Trump.
Well, that's right, Judy. I do agree with your analysts who have pointed out that Trump has not expanded his message. You know, he didn't try to reach out and broaden his appeal with a new message. But he took his message, his same message, and managed to broaden.
Is there anything that Trump could have said that would have persuaded any of you to vote for
African
him?
Americans on the same message he's been using, which is probably the economic part of that message. But we also have learned tonight there does really appear to be a quote-unquote shy Trump voter who's very hard to measure in the polls. The GOP ground game seems to be more important than the money spent on television, where Biden outspent Trump.
We have known that.
Energy matters. Trump's rallies throughout the last week to 10 days, these thousands of enthusiastic people showing up. You can criticize the health aspect of that, but it sends a message compared to Joe Biden's very laid-back style of campaigning over the last few days, kind of safe style of campaigning. You know, I've got a lot of Republican operative friends who are very, very confident tonight. I know a lot of people are saying, well, this still looks good for Biden and so on.
It does.
They're not feeling that way. And I think it will take another 24 to 48 hours to figure it out. But I think it's going to be a very, very big election for Donald Trump. Let me just put it that way. And a question that was often asked of Trump is, would you accept the election results? Will you accept the election results? And it's a question that may have to be asked of the other side before we're done.
Well, as far as everything Joe Biden has said until now, he is.
If Trump loses the popular vote,
if they were verified, and
which he is going to,
so forth. But you're right.
especially by 5 to 7 million votes,
number of
and he pulls it out in the Electoral College.
Patricia Lopez.
No, I'm not going to accept the results.
Emerging picture of what the voters are saying. Is it what does it look like to you?
You know, I'm struck by a few things in looking at voter survey data.
We are not stuck with Trump.
Far and away,
This is as good as he's going to look.
is coronavirus.
The rest of the votes that are going to be counted in these states
So these are things
heavily favor Biden.
we know that they were a factor in the polls.
Biden's still up 209
Voters who
to
are
118.
coronavirus have been tending to go for Biden. And the economy, it's a little more split. Right now, you know, Minnesota is showing still a pretty decisive lead for Biden with about half the votes in. But Trump has been narrowing that throughout the night. And if I could say a little word about Wisconsin, I know Wisconsin is very pivotal. I think people ought to remember that Wisconsin had the same surge in absentee balloting that Minnesota did. They got something like 1.9 million absentee ballots. Like Minnesota, we started counting our absentee ballots, processing them 2 weeks ago. Wisconsin did not start until 7 a.m. this morning. So there's going to be a serious lag in an enormous number of ballots in that state.
And I want to just come back to understand what you were saying about Minnesota. Explain. I mean, what is it that you're seeing about how the vote is turning? At least what we know of it in Minnesota. I mean, we know there hasn't been a call yet in the presidential race.
No.
What are they waiting for?
Well, we only have about half the votes in.
Okay.
And there are huge, and even some really populous parts of the state, like Ramsey County, where St. Paul, the state capital, is, still have very few votes in. There are huge parts of the state where we have very few. We still don't know the complete picture out of northern Minnesota. We do know, again, from this voter survey that 64% thought that the country is off on the wrong track. And if that's the case, it makes sense that they would turn away from the incumbent and toward the challenger, at least in Minnesota.
Gary Abernathy, I want to come back with the point that you were making about Donald Trump expanding the base. What is it about the Trump message that you think is appealing to people who...
You won't. You will wake up to still too close to call.
Or who maybe they voted for Hillary Clinton or they voted for third party?
I think it's based on economics. I think they trust him. You know, the economy was really roaring along before the...
We just came back. I split up the screen. We were experiencing some technical difficulties, so I stopped the stream, restarted it. We're just back on for a few minutes.
And we're reaching a point with that where almost all of us know people who have had it. We've seen what it is. We've seen what it isn't. It can be deadly. It can be dangerous. But people are not maybe as afraid of that virus as they were, and the economy, getting that back on track is better. And I think that's a message that cuts across racial differences, whether you're black, Hispanic, white. People care about the economy. And I would also like to add, though, Judy, even if Trump does win this election with the Electoral College, he's likely to lose the popular vote again. And a good friend of mine pointed out to me a few days ago, he said, you know, this would be the third Republican victory
In my lifetime.
when you go back to 2000 with Bush and then the two Trump elections where that's been the case with Republicans. And Republicans do need to broaden that message. It's enough to win the Electoral College, possibly, but they need to broaden it to win. You know, the goal shouldn't be to get rid of the Electoral College. I think that serves a great purpose. But to
It doesn't.
that appeal to win the popular vote.
Yeah, it's a question we'll certainly be asking if that's what happens. Gary Abernathy.
There is no reason for Electoral College
All of
anymore.
you to please stay with us. We are going to take a short break.
And people want to
Midnight in the
talk
East. We'll be
about
back at the top of the hour.
big states dominating small states, whatever. I am a business owner. I conduct business all over the United States.
That defined this presidential race, and
I shouldn't be confined to my vote mattering in a certain locale.
another remarkable turn of events occurred a month ago when the president himself.
The fair way to do it. One person, one vote. Everybody's vote counts equally.
Including experimental antibodies. And then, Jeff, a few days later, he was back at the White House. Will you just describe the remarkable images of his return?
It was really quite striking. You had the Marine One landing on the White House lawn.
He wanted to come out of the hospital and open up his shirt with a Superman shirt under it, and they talked him out of it.
Standing on the balcony for dramatic effect, and then taking off his mask.
I assume that's where he wanted to do it, right there.
What he was sending to his supporters was, look, I survived, I conquered the illness, and so can we. And as far as the masks go, who needs
He's
them?
struggling to breathe right there.
And it was a further demonstration of how that issue has been politicized.
I am still under the impression that we may very well.
COVID, I beat it. The response was, well, you know, not everybody had the health care that
See him die of COVID.
drove the issue into,
He sure as shit is trying to get reinfected.
and the cost of that, we're going to be paying for a while.
240,000 Americans have died of COVID-19. There is that is definitely going to be an issue in this election. But he was also back on the campaign trail after.
I have been so into politics the last few days, I hadn't even heard the number.
Into an advantage politically. I mean, there was an ad he tweeted out just moments after that White House taking off of the mask. He had made it into a political advertisement.
I think one of the things that appears to us happen, if you believe at least some of the medical reports, is that these enormous rallies, which are themselves a kind of a rebuke to the medical community, people jammed together, most of whom are not wearing masks, has in fact left a trail of COVID cases in their wake. And I think for people who were looking for the president to provide some kind of leadership, the constant assertion that we've turned the corner, the mocking of the press, all they talk about is COVID, 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 was not a helpful.
And like, I can't believe
to at least half the country or more
that, like, it's obvious
not to take
that
this pandemic with the seriousness that about 240,000
a stimulus bill, financial relief, is only going to come to us through a Democratic administration. And people are rejecting that. The rural voters that could use it the most. Is Alaska in this time zone? Do we get to call it for Trump now?
Welcome back to our special live coverage.
Or is it in the whatever Hawaii's time zone
in
is?
the east? It is midnight in the eastern United States, in the East Coast time zone. We have one state closing at this hour. It is the Aloha State, Hawaii.
Oh.
And Joe Biden has been called the winner. That
I
is
thought Hawaii was one more time zone
not
over.
a surprise, but one that we do want to put in the Biden column with its 4 electoral votes. We continue to get some context throughout the night from our Amna Nawaz and Lisa Desjardins, and we are going to do that right now. Enlighten us Amna and Lisa.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Judy. Good morning, Lisa. We have been talking a lot about the top of the ticket, obviously, but we're tracking all the down ballot races as well. Lisa, when it comes to the House, obviously we know that the Democrats want to fight to keep their majority there. The AP's already called, what, 265 of the races tonight?
Yeah, and most of those were expected. A lot of those were not competitive at all. But we are noticing some trends in some of the competitive races. Democrats came in to this night, as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told Judy, with expectations they could gain 5 to up to 20 seats. But so far, they're not seeing the wins that they were hoping for. Here's what we have right now of those seats that were called. But let's look at this first race right now in Florida, the 26th district. This is Miami-Dade. We've been talking about it all night. Big time Hispanic Latino vote coming out for Trump is what we've been hearing. Also coming out for this man, Carlos Jimenez. He is the mayor of Miami-Dade. He has unseated tonight, according to the Associated Press, Debbie Murkisel-Powell. She was elected in 2018 in that 2018 sweep.
Wow.
She's not able to hold on to that seat tonight. Another 2018 Democratic freshman in New York, Max Rose. This is a race that has not been called yet, but look at the difference here. 95% reporting over there, as you have, Amna. Yeah. But Nicole Malliotakis, 58%. She is someone, she's worked for George Pataki. She's been a Republican aide worker, worked for Marco Rubio at one point. But Max Rose in trouble. Republicans think this was a law and order race, having to do with protests. Max Rose attended Black Lives Matter protest, and they used that as a pivot point against him. So he's in trouble tonight. However, there's a race that we see Democrats picking up. This is this is Illinois. This is not a race they're picking up. This is Sherry Bustos' race in the 17th district. Very big deal. Sherry Bustos is the woman running the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee.
Wow, 10 votes.
Democrats' House campaign, and she herself right now is in dire straits. It looks like she's leading in this race by just over 110 votes. Out of
110, okay.
1,000.
That is a very, very close one. 96% of the expected vote in.
Yes,
Well, that's better.
Recently, and she felt she could get this done, but it is very close. This is a rural Trump district. See a theme here? There might be. Let's go to some other races. Another one, Virginia 7. This is Abigail Spanberger. Look at this margin. 99%.
So Trump is overperforming.
Down by more than 20 points.
However, we are still in an historic turnout election
that I think anyone might have expected here. She's a strong incumbent. She's been working hard in this district, but it looks like she's being overwhelmed right now by Republican enthusiasm down the center of Virginia, and that includes Richmond, that district. So we're seeing a lot of Democratic incumbents from a couple of the most vulnerable who are looking like they're in trouble.
But hey, there's no people in the red part of Virginia.
As well, we know 35 seats are up for election tonight. The AP has so far called 24 of them. What does this mean for the balance of power? Let's walk through some of these key races, Lisa.
Yeah, let's just look at one more before we let go. I know there's a lot of numbers for everyone, but North Carolina, this is a key one for whether Democrats can pick up the Senate, right? We've been talking about it all night. Tom Tillis, the incumbent.
Cunningham had been up in the polls.
And look at this difference. Very close. You look at these margins, it's less than 100,000 votes. And
they have just called Ohio for President Trump.
The expected vote is in. Votes can still come in until November 12th.
I believe that's my first one that I've gotten wrong.
I think before Election Day was the North Carolina deadline.
I have a feeling we'll be back here.
It's
talking
possible.
About some of these
How
races.
many people mailed in their votes on the last day? How would we possibly know that? The question is, how close is the margin? How much does the Associated Press want to wait to see how they feel about this race? But this is very good news for Tom Tillis. 2 weeks ago, Republicans were very worried about this race, and they might still.
No, I didn't get it wrong. I gave Ohio to Trump.
Good news for the Republicans. We have no idea how many outstanding ballots there could be, so we could see a shift again. So it's still very, very.
As of right now, I'm still on the money.
Look at it, 100,000 votes. I'm looking over about 100,000, a little less than 100,000.
That's right.
Votes, but who knows where we don't know
5 million.
yet where those votes are yet to come in. All right, very, very helpful. We have been illuminated, educated. Thank you both very much, Amna and Lisa. Right now, we're going to go to the White House. Yamiche Alcindor is there, standing at this place where the president is watching the results. Yamiche, the president has to be somewhat.
So they're going by the AP. It is actually Fox News and NBC who have called Ohio for Trump.
That's right. Trump campaign as well as the president believe that he's
I mean, it looks insurmountable.
multiple pathways to get to that 270 critical electoral votes in order to win. But Judy, I have to tell you, there's a bit of a volatile situation, something that is quite unexpected. While the AP has not called the state of Arizona, so there is no official result. Of course, we're looking at the AP results for our own determinations here at the NewsHour. But Fox News did call Arizona for Joe Biden, and the Trump campaign, as well as the president, are furious at Fox News. This is a rare incident where you see the president lashing out at Fox News because, of course, he has had a very close relationship with Fox News. He's given them the most interviews throughout his presidency. He's hired a number of people from Fox News to work in this administration. So there's a lot of anger.
Wow, I bet he is furious because
lose Arizona, it would be a big deal.
his strategy is to wait until a moment where it looks like he's ahead
Republican to lose Arizona
and then claim he won.
1996 when Bill Clinton took it. This is a state that is seen since 1955 as a reliably red state. So that would be a big win for Joe Biden. Again, the AP has not called this. We're not calling it. But the Trump campaign is calling Fox News, as I report right now, to try to get them to dispute that, try to get them to pull that back. They say
Biden is up 200K.
How important
It's significant.
These calls being made.
There's only 25% of the vote to be counted, so
place where they can win, especially when they're looking at other states like Ohio. Like
Fox News is going hardcore trying to call before everybody else.
Interesting, Yamish, when there are so many
AP is
out there that they would be
being very cautious.
You're right, it's a state the president won in 2016. They don't want to lose, of course, a single state. But
North Carolina
directing their anger at a news organization.
Been stopped at like 94%.
Thank you.
Less than 100,000 votes.
Meantime, John Yang is in Wilmington, Delaware, where the Biden campaign is gathering. John, they're looking at the same numbers. We are the same returns. What are they telling you?
They're telling me patience and caution. Patience because they're beginning to believe, or they do believe, that we will not have a definitive answer to the race tonight, that it will not be settled. There are enough states that are still counting and will not report numbers like Wisconsin, like Pennsylvania. And also caution because there are certain numbers that they say they're trying to understand. The Michigan numbers, it's not clear which ballots are being reported right now. And this is this unusual nature of this race, that there is such a difference between the early ballots and the ballots cast in person today, that they are having trouble understanding what Michigan is doing and when they look at the numbers that are being reported. But the bottom line is they do not think there will be a definitive answer to this race.
Now, I think one of the people on PBS said that Michigan did not process their ballots, if I remember correctly. So that means they probably processed them today. We're getting day of vote.
That will give them victory, and they also believe that the Trump strategy of trying to win in the courts after the votes have been counted will not succeed. But that's what they're saying at this hour.
And John,
and they've got good reason to believe that, because so far the court challenges that the Trump administration has thrown, virtually all of them have failed, if not all of them. I don't believe I've heard of a successful one.
I mean, they were saying that they did. He said that if there was something to talk about, he would talk about it. But I don't know if this means anything. But we've seen more vehicles arriving at this drive-in rally. The parking lot sort of closest to the Chase Center has been filling up. But what that means, I really don't know.
All right. Well, John Yang, you're on the case.
Fucking Biden should go ahead and walk out and claim victory.
We're watching this election unfold. John Yang in Wilmington, Delaware tonight, watching and staying in close contact with the Biden campaign. So let's return to our family of analysts, Amy Walter here at the table with me, Mark Shields, and David Brooks as well. I want to ask you, Mark, we don't know what's going to happen in this election. It clearly is taking longer than we thought. It's after midnight. It's 12:15, 12:10 in the East. does this mean it's good news for Joe Biden or not good news for Joe Biden? What is your?
It doesn't mean any. It means that we're not going to know tonight.
My gut, which speaks to me very frequently and and very clearly, tells me that Joe Biden should go to bed, rest, confident that he will eventually emerge as the winner, but that it's not going to be a knockout in the first round, as a lot of Democrats had hoped it would be, by carrying Florida and North Carolina, and just making it almost inevitable he was going to win. I think that's what it tells me. We're in for a while. It's going to be a test of
buckle up, buckaroos,
in how they handle it. And how they respect the process, I think that's the test. But if I were Joe Biden, I would go to sleep, relatively secure tonight, and knowing. I'll say one thing, Judy, this race has been about the battleground states. I mean, they devoted all their time, resources, and attention.
That's another reason to get rid of the Electoral College. I want a chance to go to fucking presidential rallies.
Kind of followed script. Massachusetts went, decidedly blue. Wyoming went overwhelmingly red.
And it gives Democrats in Texas a voice. It gives Republicans in California a voice. Because California isn't a monolith.
A number of these states must be asking, David, what do we chop liver?
Fucking 35 to 40% of California is Republican.
Just fell the way we thought they were going to fall, but hey, these states that hold the balance of the
it gives us all a say. I don't know why anyone is against it. Other than a group like the Republican Party. They're the only people that benefit from it.
Yamiche reporting that President Trump is angry at Fox News for calling.
But each of us as individual citizens should all be against the Electoral College.
Candidates do right now.
Well, there was a scenario, I wrote a column about this a few weeks ago, that we would get exactly where we are tonight, where Trump seems to have won a lot of votes, and then he's ahead, as he is, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, because the mail-in votes have not been...
But he's not really ahead. It looks like Biden is winning right now.
3 states, I'm winning there, and I won everywhere else. It's over. And so that was my nightmare scenario, because then we'd get in a fight. We in the media would have to say, no, it's not over. And then his supporters would say, yes, it is over. And we may still get there. But so far, he hasn't done that. So far, today has been a lot calmer than I would have thought. And so, a lot of bad things that could have happened have not happened so far, and we should be grateful for that. My gut isn't as calm as Mark's gut. I have the Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner running around in there, and I say that because I think if Fox is right, which I'm not sure, then Joe Biden does have several paths to get to the White House.
Yep.
But we still have this big mystery of Pennsylvania. Trump is up by a lot, like 13 points now, but it's worth remembering the absentee ballot.
But now here it starts with the disinformation.
For Biden.
Why have they not called a winner in Florida yet? Oh.
They could produce just a massive swing.
I have been through enough elections in my lifetime to know Miami-Dade County is always a clusterfuck. That's why they haven't called Florida.
I'd rather be Biden than Trump, but there's a lot of ways this thing could swing over the next couple of days.
Amy Walter, you're looking at the big picture. What are you seeing right now?
Well, it's remarkable to me that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and
I think that was a great assessment.
Has this had on this election? In some ways, the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic where majority of Americans say they don't approve of the job the president's doing on the pandemic.
Honestly, looking at these returns, the pandemic, had Joe Biden been the nominee absent a pandemic.
But he's not doing any worse than he did, say, in 2016.
He probably would have got trounced by Trump.
I'm going to interrupt you and just say there is a call to make an important state, Minnesota. The AP is declaring Joe Biden will win Minnesota. That's a state that he won 4 years ago.
That Clinton barely
I'm sorry
won.
that the Democrats won. That I keep saying he won. That Hillary Clinton won 4 years ago. And so it's a hold for the Democrats.
It's another one. This is my map.
Trump can't spend.
So far, I have been spot fucking on.
That, you know, the Georgia and Texas were for.
It's looking like Florida is going to go Trump, and I'm going to get that one wrong.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's.
But so far, I've been spot on.
The impact of the pandemic on how voters are approaching this race. How do they see the issue of the pandemic impacting their opinions of the president and how they choose to vote? But the other thing that it's obviously had the biggest impact in is people casting their ballots early, and Democrats casting ballots early in states where they don't have a robust tradition of early vote. Michigan, Wisconsin.
And hopefully this continues.
State like Pennsylvania, this is the first time that they've allowed.
That after all of the mail-in and early votings, people are like, hey, we like this. Let's continue to do this.
Until the morning of the election, we knew that there were going to be some big holdups. And so.
And let's hopefully change the laws in states that don't count their absentee ballots to be like Florida, where they count 22 days out.
3 states that Democrats really want to put back into their column, the blue wall states, will wait probably for day 2 or more to find the final results.
And I'm also thinking of Texas, which had more people turn out to vote early than the entire number who voted in 2016. Who are those people? Who were they voting for? We don't have a call yet.
That's right.
500,000 votes separate them in Texas, with about 25% to go.
12, 17 in the East in the morning, and we still don't know a lot about what's happening. I think you want me to go to, so I'm going to thank Mark and David and Amy for right now. Is that right? And then we're going to move to talk to Stephanie Sy in Arizona and Dan Bush in Pennsylvania.
The producer in her ear doesn't really know what's going on.
Move along. But we've been talking a lot about Arizona here, Stephanie, and the last time you talked to us, you were saying that it's some really interesting numbers coming in. We've heard the president's upset that Fox News has called Arizona for Joe Biden. The AP has not called it yet. But what are you seeing on the ground in Arizona?
It's looking like Biden's going to win.
The numbers haven't shifted materially in the last hour, Judy, but with more than 70% of the ballots received and counted, former Vice President Biden still leads Trump in the state of Arizona.
So Susan Collins in Maine is giving a speech right now.
In the contentious Senate race,
there's only 61% of the vote in, but she's leading Sarah Gideon by 10 points.
Martha McSally,
that is very disappointing.
55% to 44%. So that hasn't changed. I did hear Yamish's reporting. That's because one of the networks did call the projected winner in Arizona to be Biden.
There is multiple news organizations calling Texas for Trump. However, I've never heard of these news organizations. So I wouldn't trust it.
His children have visited.
500,000 votes separate them right now, with about 25% to go.
Large rallies here, and obviously he won Arizona by 3.5 points in 2016. So this is an important state to him. 11 electoral votes, more than Wisconsin, fewer than Michigan. But seeing what's unfolding in the Midwest there, Arizona certainly feels like it could be decisive ultimately. The thing to say is that what we have so far are the early ballots tabulated. They have
Arizona has legalized marijuana.
For the some 248,000 in-person votes that took place in Maricopa County today. And the reason why I emphasize Maricopa County is because, as you've been discussing with your other guests, that is the main population center. That is where most of the votes will come from. And it's also really a bellwether for how this state goes. It's diverse. We are seeing a lot of districts that were very reliably red in the Phoenix.
I really like the fact that it pisses Trump off that Fox did it.
And they are blue. And by the way, we should also say that Mark Kelly gave a speech just.
Let's go look at his Twitter, shall we?
Victory speech. So he is not accepting that he is the winner yet. But the former astronaut did.
That's the same thing with Susan Collins. It wasn't a victory speech for her.
Be successful in this mission. So we are still waiting more results. And I'll say one more thing that I'm thinking about tonight, which is that competitive Senate race in the midterm elections, the 2018 race in which the Democrat Kyrsten Sinema beat.
Trump hasn't tweeted all day.
That took 6 days to officially call in Arizona. So we have been told, just
His
like
last tweet was
to be patient,
like 8 hours ago.
Take a couple of days to get all the votes tabulated.
No, 6 hours ago. We are looking really good all over the country. Thank you.
Reminding us of that. And Dan, before I come to you in Pennsylvania, we do have a call to make. The Associated.
He's proud of his dancing.
Donald Trump.
It's his pinned fucking tweet.
In Ohio with its 18
God damn.
The Buckeye State. Joe Biden spent an hour or so there just over the weekend.
Well, I mean, we know he's furious. They reported that he's yelling at Fox News. That's why I wanted to check his Twitter. I thought
I know that
he might have had some humorous tweets.
Senator encouraged Joe Biden to make make it more of a fight. But right now, with 94% of the expected vote in, the AP has called Donald Trump the winner. So that's a hold for.
I was in Ohio.
And here's another call
for work during the 2004 presidential race.
This is with 55%.
Holy shit! What a state.
The president.
That was when the Democrats were still trying to hold on to it. I think Bush won it that year.
This is a state that it was not expected that the Democrats.
Yeah, that's where it was a toss-up. There was some wonky shit. I think Kerry almost threw a court challenge over Ohio.
5% of the expected vote in, the AP comfortable in saying that Donald Trump will win. As you can see right now, the margin is.
Oh, I think that's my first one I got wrong. I gave Iowa to
of the vote to come
Biden.
in. We're still waiting on the Senate race in that state. The Republican incumbent.
Well, nuts. That's the first one that I got wrong.
To see what happens there. Dan Bush, back to you now that we've been able to put those 3 states in the president's column. All of it good news for the White House. I want to ask you about Pennsylvania. We know it's going to take a while to count the votes. The last time we spoke with you, people in charge of monitoring the election count were saying they were not going to get it done tonight. And we assume that's still the case.
Very much so, Judy. Right now, over 50% of the vote is in. Donald Trump does have a healthy margin here, but they just can't get through all of these votes tonight. They are going to be counting around the clock in counties that haven't finished that scanning process of these mail-in and absentee ballots. We're not expecting a big round of additional new results for several more hours, Judy. Right now, on the ground here in Pennsylvania, Democrats are resigned to a long, drawn-out process of several days, and there is a level of anxiety here. Anxiety because Democrats have put in a lot of work in these battleground states over the last couple of years. You know, you think back to when President Obama and Vice President Biden left the office, left the White House, that is, and there was frustration within the party at the time.
Why are we not getting returns from Nevada yet? Are they open until they got the polls open until fucking midnight?
Riding President Obama's coattails. After Hillary Clinton lost, however, the party decided to go back into those communities and try and initiate.
Trump has won Ohio. Fox News called Arizona for Joe Biden, and Trump has had a shit fit over it.
To see sort of more robust numbers right out of the gate in states like Pennsylvania.
I believe Fox News is calling
so many votes left
Florida for Trump. But the AP has not called it yet. The AP has just called Minnesota for Joe Biden.
Where Democrats vote much more often by mail than Republicans. And so
that gets him up to 223.
As these votes get...
Arizona is almost certainly going to go for him.
Start to tilt back into
Fox News has called Arizona for him.
Already
so that puts him at...
Tomorrow, for a tense
234.
Philadelphia and across the state. Protesters will be marching, demanding that
Probably going to win Nevada pretty handily.
by Republicans
And Nevada is 6 votes. That puts him at 240.
ballots, groups of ballots that they are arguing should not be counted. I spoke with a member of the Biden campaign's legal team focused on Pennsylvania here who said, look, it was always impossible to count all these votes tonight.
So if Biden wins Pennsylvania and Wisconsin or Michigan,
down the road about these votes,
North Carolina, he needs a combination.
all the votes are going to be
Like Wisconsin, Michigan, and North Carolina, he can lose Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, Texas.
Right, Dan. We were told, we were warned ahead of
He
time.
can win Pennsylvania and one of North Carolina, Michigan, or Wisconsin, and lose Georgia, Florida, Texas.
Take time because of these early ballots that came in the state for its own set of reasons, not counting them, not beginning to count them until
Winning Florida or Texas, he can lose all the rest of the states.
I do want to let everybody
he'll
know
win.
we've been told that Joe Biden is going to be speaking to the American people at 12:30, which is in about 3 minutes.
No, it's not an oh God situation because in these states, they're not showing their absentee mail-in ballots yet. Those are the last to be counted.
Wilmington, Delaware.
And they are expected to go overwhelmingly for the Democrats.
We want to turn to
So it's still very likely that Joe Biden wins. We're probably not going to know tonight, though.
These numbers are, I mean, in
He has far more paths to victory than Trump does, even though Trump is ahead in the count in all these states. This is the best that Trump is going to look at any point in time.
And that it is those absentee ballots that will still be coming in, and that they started counting this morning, started processing this morning, started tabulating as a.
She reminds me of the girl from Arrested Development that worked for
versus the president.
George Bluth.
But I want to also talk about something that
Like his secretary.
I've been reporting on in Virginia. We talked about the 7th Congressional.
Kitty, that was her name.
All of us, our eyes popped at that margin right now. And it seems to be the case. We're contacting the Associated Press to make sure we understand this correctly. But being in touch with her campaign, and also she just tweeted out, I'm just seeing this now, that actually some 200,000 early votes have not been counted there. That is larger than the total that we had on the board. So there's a conflict there about how many votes have been counted, the percentage of counts that have been counted. She's saying most of the votes have yet to be recorded.
The other thing I'm seeing on the screen, and maybe I'm not, maybe my eyes are deceiving me, I keep looking at numbers in the Virginia Senate race, which we've called for Mark Warner, but it's a very close contest. These are the House numbers we're looking at. You're right, where it's 137,000 to 89,000, but Lisa, you're saying that's not 99%.
That's right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's right. It could be that is 99% of the day of total. We are asking the Associated Press to clarify that. But
now we're really getting into a clusterfuck.
Is tweeting that 220,000 early votes have not yet been counted, and they are pending, as are pending mail-in ballots as well. And she's saying she's giving the specific counties: Henrico, Chesterfield, Spotsylvania, Powhatan County. They have representatives in all those places who know.
A lot of questions to be answered about that. And again, I want to come back to the Senate race in Virginia too. But right now, let's go to John Yang in Wilmington, Delaware. I was just, okay. John Yang, Wilmington, Delaware, and we're going to be hearing shortly, John, from the former vice president.
Apparently he's going to be speaking here in
His
just a second.
motorcade is on its way. It's left his house. It's on its way here to the Chase Center. So he should be here in just a very few minutes. You know, it's funny, just as the guidance was coming.
This is a good strategy on his part. He really should come out, speak to the American people, and start acting like he's the leader. Absolutely.
Telling me that they do.
This isn't going to be a declare victory speech, but he should talk like he won. Absolutely.
They do feel good about Arizona. They do believe that after all the votes are counted in Wisconsin and Michigan, those states will be in the Biden column. This official then said, and then Pennsylvania. And I said, and then
Oh, and I think when I was doing the off the top of my head math, was I counting Nevada in that? Yeah, maybe I was.
They're looking at it, but they feel good about it. But they do believe that there will not be an answer tonight. They feel that they are in good shape, and we'll see what the vice president has to say.
Now, see, Trump is up by about 650,000 votes.
In the days leading up to tonight, rather.
But we're talking 35% still yet to be counted, predominantly mail-in, which is going to lean Democrat.
Unifying tones would speak in trying to urge calm and to counter anything that might be coming out of the White House.
So this is an excellent move by Joe Biden. I endorse this.
Joe Biden does have for the his supporters here who are gathered in their cars.
Especially after hearing that Trump had a shit fit on Fox News about Arizona. Yeah, come on out. Dig into him a little more. I love it.
And see what also message he has for the American people, Judy.
It's the modern day version, or at least a 2020, 2021 version of American politics. John, we're going to come back to you as soon as the former vice president is ready to speak. I am seeing another report about Georgia also saying that it's not going to be able to call results tonight. So if that's the case, if that's accurate, then we've got Georgia.
They were having issues in Fulton County, which is Atlanta.
He won't be able to call. Amna Nawaz, you are talking.
Trump is only leading him
I am with one of the states we have been able to call so far.
by about 300K
Karen Kassler. She's the
in Georgia,
with Ohio Public Radio and TV.
with Atlanta yet to report.
The AP has called the state of Ohio for President Trump. He won it back in 2016, but as we're unpacking and understanding what is happening tonight, how did he do it?
It keeps moving more and more red, as I said. I was in Ohio in 2004 when the Democrats were trying to hold on to it. What the fuck is going on in Ohio?
3 points in 2016. Now it looks like he's going to win by 8.3 points this time around. So that is a fairly interesting set of numbers in terms of the significance of an increase here. He won by about 446,000 votes last time, winning now by 471,000 votes. There are still some votes that are outstanding, but it sure looks like that he has actually improved upon his performance from 2016.
And Karen, do we know yet where he made those gains specifically? What kinds of communities and what demographics?
Well, he actually picked up a couple of counties. He picked up 3 counties, apparently, that he had not won, that he lost in 2016. He picked up Mahoning County, which is near Youngstown. It's the Youngstown County. It's near western Pennsylvania, which could
Honestly.
what's happening in western Pennsylvania there. He also picked up Lorain.
But to watch a state like that in my lifetime
Is currently winning Portage County, which is in the
go from blue to red, I don't know what the mindset is other than
contribute to that increase in votes that he
the lack of jobs has caused the more educated people to move. And I don't want to say educated people.
Cases are rising in a number of states. Seems not to have mattered as much as some.
The college educated people, the people with the degrees
cases as well. What do you make about what kind of impact
and more high-tech jobs have moved out of the state?
In fact, Ohio set a record for confirmed cases of coronavirus today, over 4,000 cases today. And Ohio had been a state that had gotten
And it hasn't been that long since I was in Ohio. I saw Radiohead in Cincinnati.
Pushback on that, and I think that may have been part
End of
this.
2018.
Trump has come here and rallied here and had these rallies and public events, and even Governor Mike DeWine, who's been very.
And I will tell you, Cincinnati is, at least down there on the riverfront, where the arena is, like it's super cool. I like the riverfront in Cincinnati.
Of Ohio Public Radio and TV joining us.
Now, I have my problems with the way they do traffic lights in Ohio, because you get like one green light, there's no arrow lights, and both sides can go right, left, and straight. And you gotta yield to people.
He's ready to speak, but I do want to take this opportunity to go back to two people.
It's like a crapshoot anytime you come to an intersection in Ohio.
She's a senior advisor to the Republican National Committee. She's also a former deputy chief of staff at the Trump White House. And Joel Benenson, Democratic strategist. He led the
What up, Joel?
for the Obama Biden campaigns in 2008 and 2012. Katie Walsh, at this point, President Trump holding on to every state that's been called that he won in 2016. Some questions about what's going on in Arizona, but what does it look like this is shaping up at this point to be to you?
Well, I mean, not only is the president holding all of the states from 2016, he's expanding his margin.
He's improved his margins.
Florida by 354,000 votes. He only won it by 100,000 votes in 2016, and you just did a segment about Ohio that I think is, mirrors the same.
So it looks like the AP has now called Florida for Trump?
I think Arizona, there have been a couple people that have gotten kind of, I think, out over their skis on how Arizona's looking. We still are confident about Arizona.
That sucks.
We obviously feel good about Ohio finally being called and Florida, et cetera. And so a lot of these states are going to take a while for the rest of the numbers to come in, but we like what we're seeing.
I was just told that we can call the state of Florida for President Trump. And there it is, with 96% of the expected vote in. Close, but 3 points, 3 percentage points at least at this stage. That means the president holds the Sunshine State. This was a state Joe Biden put a lot of effort into.
Now that electoral vote count also doesn't include Maine or Arizona.
Florida made a couple of stops there today and in North Carolina while Joe Biden.
Surely Nevada is going to go for Biden.
But we are able to call Florida for President Trump. Here is the Biden motorcade making its way to downtown Wilmington, where he will step out and speak to the cameras and speak to a crowd of supporters who are there in their cars. Again, as we said, the modern day 2020 version of a campaign rally, not in a ballroom, but in a parking lot with the cars all pointed in the same direction. We're waiting for him. While we're waiting for him to speak, Joel Benenson, the president holding on to Ohio. We're waiting to see what happens in Arizona, but you just heard what Katie Walsh said. What's your take?
Well, I think Katie nailed it pretty straightforwardly. I think what we're looking at is a replica of 2016 in a way at this point, and it's going to come down to the upper Midwest states plus Arizona. Joe Biden is going to have to, when the votes get counted, and the votes should be counted, the fact that we had more people voting doesn't mean we should stop counting at midnight. Let's get all the votes counted and see who wins in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona. Because you can see the numbers up on the board there now where we sit in terms of electoral college votes. Vice President Biden still has a lead. He's within 47 votes or so, 47, I believe, of getting to an electoral college win. President Trump's a bit behind. He's winning states he needs to win. And it's going to come down to these upper Midwest battleground states. They're called battleground states for a reason. They're always going to be close. People don't win blowouts in these states. So we're going to have a ways to go here. I know it's not usual.
I'm so tired of that.
To have the count spill over, but we've had it happen before. We didn't know until the next day in 2000.
Can we please get rid of the Electoral College?
And if it takes 2 or 3 days to get it right, that's the most important thing for our country and for our democracy and for the next president of the United States.
Katie Walsh, as we wait for Vice President Biden to speak, do you expect that President Trump, that his campaign, the White House, will wait patiently for the votes to be counted in Pennsylvania? What do you expect to see?
I would actually really like to see Trump speak tonight.
In the hours to come.
I assume he's not happy right now,
The White House
and that makes me happy.
Election, and they want to see every vote counted, and I think they're going to be.
No, they don't.
They're going to do everything they can to make sure that happens. I think one of the things that Joe said that I found interesting was
they've already done everything they can to make sure that it doesn't happen.
That are
But
targeted.
they've been smacked down by the
Michigan and
courts.
Pennsylvania have only really come on the map for Republicans since 2016 with the president. And so when you talk about states, the way the map looks and how you get to 270, back in 2004, 2008, 2012, we weren't talking about Michigan and Pennsylvania. Those were states that really weren't on the map for Republicans. So the president's actually put more states on the map in 2016 and definitely now in 2020. He's still competitive in those states. And so, we've broadened the map and we feel very good about a number of paths because of that.
What about that, Joel Benenson?
Add a word here, because I did the polling for President Obama in 2008 and 2012. I can assure you that those 3 states were considered battleground states. They were very much part of our battleground universe.
All right, we may not resolve that in this segment of the program, but we'll give you a chance to come back and figure out whether it was whether those were battlegrounds or not. Thank you very much, Joel Benenson. Katie Walsh, we'll come back to you.
Pennsylvania for sure.
At least 1 Senate race to call. 2, and here they come. One of them is the state of Iowa. Joni Ernst will hold on to that state. She was running behind, but it is a hold for the Republicans. This is Joni Ernst seeking her 2nd term in the United States Senate. She was challenged by Democrat Teresa Greenfield. And this is a big victory. The Republicans were sweating that one out. New Mexico, this is a hold for the Democrats. Ben Ray Lujan, who's a member of Congress, is holding on to the seat in the Land of Enchantment, holding off Mark Ronchetti in the state of New Mexico. This was an open seat. Tom Udall stepping down at the end of his term, but again, a hold. It's an open seat, but it is a hold for the Democrats. And now we have former Vice President Joe Biden.
Good evening. Your patience is commendable. We knew this was going to go long, but who knew?
You might.
I'm talking to folks in Philly, Allegheny County, Scranton, and they're really encouraged by the turnout and what they see. Look, you know, we could know the results as early as tomorrow morning, but it may take a little longer.
I wish he had focused this speech a little more on
Donald Trump's place to declare
his transition. You should just grazed over the votes and start talking about what you're going to do as president.
Every one of you came out and voted in this election. And by the way, Chris Coons and the Democrats, congratulations here in Delaware. Pardon? Hey, John, the Gov, yeah, the whole team, man. You've done a great job. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process.
And Jill Biden just seems like a sweet lady. I think I'll like her as First Lady. I like her a lot more than I like Joe Biden.
And folks, you heard me say it before. Every time I walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, "Joey, keep the faith." And my grandma, when she was alive, yelled, "No, Joey, spread it. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this." Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your patience is great. Let's walk over here.
Joe Biden, his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, coming out on a chilly night in Wilmington, Delaware, to tell his supporters.
Yeah, I really wish that he had walked out and acted more like he was the president already.
On track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote that it was going to take a while. He said it ain't over till every vote is counted. Then he went on to say, specifically, he said we feel confident about Arizona. He said, we're still in the game in Georgia. He said, I'm feeling good about Wisconsin and Michigan. And he said flat out, we are going to win in Pennsylvania. So we'll see. Joining us now, two of our analysts who've been with us throughout the night, Jonathan Capehart of the Washington Post, columnist, and Eliana Johnson of the Washington Free Beacon.
Georgia has not moved.
So we've heard from the former vice president. He says
same thing with North Carolina. Ooh, North Carolina is still razor fucking thin.
I think he should be. And not all of the votes have been counted. And as we were saying, we've been saying all night that this is going to be a long night. The one thing that I found very interesting is that the former vice president, in word, was optimistic, but also in tone and demeanor. He sounded like a person who believes that he was still in the hunt, that this election is not over, that
Not still in the hunt, that he has won.
He believes he will be victorious. And I think for a lot of Democrats who are out there biting their fingernails, chugging the fourth bottle of wine, or doing whatever else they're doing to calm their nerves, hearing Biden and seeing Biden, I would hope, for them, that it tamps down the anxiety and the emotions of the moment.
The Purdue-Ossoff race, that is sad.
Here on the NewsHour set, we're trying to get in a sip of water or tea every half hour or so. But do you hear from? I mean, between
Sorry
what
about that, Judy.
was saying earlier about the Trump camp feeling
Streaming's where it's at.
and what the former Vice President Biden is saying.
I'll never go back to traditional broadcasting
They're
now.
looking at the same set of numbers.
I'm loving this.
Right. I think the period we're in now is a narrative setting period, and that's why you just saw the former vice president go out on stage and say,
And thank you guys for joining me. We've had a full room most of the night. Whole 8, 10, 12 people.
behoove President Trump also to go out and speak to his supporters, because
Just got 3 of you right now, but like
Biden has gotten ahead of the president and getting.
when we come to the 2024 presidential race, the Troll Patrol will still be going. I think you're going to be amazed at the number of people watching.
Than President Trump right now. It looks increasingly likely that.
So thank you guys for being here for the beginning with me.
Still don't know anything there, and that's as significant, I think, as the presidential race, in that it really does away with all the talk it would do away with all the talk we've heard about getting rid of the filibuster under a Democratic majority, as well as any prospect of court packing, which we heard a lot about after the confirmation of now Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Well, there's no question that
It could come down to Biden winning the presidency and Harris being able to cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate.
If you're the Democrat, it's hard to get anything done. But if the Senate were to flip to Democratic control and the president were to be reelected, that would.
And I've been saying it all along that the Senate was far more important than the presidency.
Eliana Johnson, Jonathan K.
And that's why I worked so hard to highlight different Senate races. That's why I encourage people to give to Marquita Blackburn.
You are in Wilmington still.
Marquita Bradshaw, I'm sorry. Jamie Harrison.
Where you are, he came out and spoke a little after
Sarah Gideon.
40 in the morning, short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I think there was a lot of. It did pump up the energy here in this parking lot.
Smoke your Trump cone. What have you got one put back specifically for when he loses?
But a lot of people got out of their cars to see, experience, and hear the vice president's speech. I think a lot of this was to try to.
I tried to prepare people like we probably wouldn't know tonight.
You say it's now 12:40 in the morning, and they have yet to flip a state from Trump that the president won in 2016. We haven't seen
Arizona.
State, called by the Associated Press.
Okay. I was about to say.
So I think he wanted to come out and express his optimism that there are still votes to be counted, that there are still states they feel good about, as you gave that.
I seriously wish that his speech was a little different.
Michigan.
That he'd already started talking like he was the president.
Which was and that they were.
I want to hear from Trump. I want to see what that motherfucker is like right now.
In Georgia, and flat out said that they would win in Pennsylvania. So, and as he left, he also told everybody that he would speak to them again tomorrow. So I think that they are in a waiting game. What one campaign official described to me tonight as the slow option. They feel they're on their way. They're on their pathway to the 270 electoral votes.
Well, I said it from the very beginning. Florida was the only way we were going to know tonight.
John, by the slow option, meaning we heard him say tomorrow or maybe longer. It clearly isn't what they wished. I'm sure they would have loved for this to have been over quickly with the result that they wanted, but it wasn't to be. As you're saying, it seems he's bucking up his supporters, not just there in Wilmington, but around the country, who are watching television or listening on the radio, and who
Just the demeanor of the two candidates should tell you all you need to know.
want some assurance that this goes on.
Exactly, and I think that there are a lot of Democrats, a lot of grassroots Democrats I've been talking to over the past few days and few weeks, when they talk about the PTSD of 2016, one of them told me there's no P about it. There's no post-traumatic stress disorder about 2016. They say it's current, it's present, I'm feeling it now. And I think that they wanted to keep that encouragement up and keep that sense of optimism.
I'm so over.
This is not over, that there are still votes to be counted. And as he said, once all the votes are
The malaise.
they feel that they're in a good
Like,
position.
I couldn't watch the American Horror Story. I haven't watched American Horror Story since the Trump season. I watched the first couple of episodes. I'm like, I just can't do this right now.
There is optimism, and there's confidence.
And I haven't gone back to that. That was one of my favorite shows on TV.
In Michigan.
And there was so much media that's just Trump saturated. I'm tired of it.
And that there's
Especially as someone who is a political junkie and who watches political comedy, listens to political talk shows.
the votes will be
I'm done. I want to go back to arguing about fucking stupid shit. Not stupid shit, but like actual meaningful legislation.
That the vice president, the former
The
vice
minutia of bills moving through the Senate. I want to go back to that stuff.
have not been willing to go that far. They say they feel good about Pennsylvania, but no one said flat out they're going to win it.
Well, he's now on the record as forecasting that he's going to win Pennsylvania along with those other states. All right, John Yang in Wilmington.
And the sad part is I really liked, God, I forget his name now. He's the lead in a lot of the.
Yamiche, you've been hearing all this. Is the president going to speak?
I stopped watching Bill Maher. Fuck.
The president just tweeted, Judy.
Probably about halfway through the Trump presidency. I can't do it.
But he tweeted just as
I cringed every time he walked out. It was like, whiny little bitch. Like, oh, fuck, I hate you.
because this is essentially the nightmare scenario that
I was already off the Bill Maher bandwagon for a while.
was rigged. Here's what he tweeted: We are up big, but they are trying to steal the election. They being the Democrats. We will never let them do that. Votes cannot be cast after the polls are closed.
What?
Now, that is President Trump saying
That's what they're trying to. They're going to try to say this, and I've already seen misinformation on Facebook saying, "Why haven't they called Texas?"
This again is what President Trump had been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks.
But I had already stopped being a fan of Bill Maher, and I had been watching him since he was on ABC. But I'd stopped being a fan of Bill Maher
listening to different
pretty early on in the Obama administration, to be honest with you. But I kept watching the show because he always had a great panel on, and it was some of the best political talk. But just through the Trump administration, I can't anymore.
Whether or not this is going to be a prolonged battle that might go.
Yes, he is like.
Sort of borderfied, or whether or not they might say, "I'm going to wait for the."
He's the old man yells at cloud now.
And Yamiche, what is there any evidence?
And he's hard on the young people and the cancel culture and yada yada yada. These kids, I fucking can't stand it. What his tweet already got flagged by Twitter? Holy shit! Hold on.
2020, the president has said that he does not believe.
I checked his Twitter not long after I came back from the break.
What we do know is that there are multiple states that are still counting ballots. We've been talking, of course.
So he's tweeted a couple times now.
That state is still going to be counting a number of other states. Georgia.
Some of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading.
I will say that there's never been an election.
Yeah, he's not up big.
That was certified on election night. We've always had elections where votes have been counted after that. Of course, we've had elections where winners were declared.
I will be making a statement tonight. A big win. Here we go. He's going to claim that he won.
In 1968, the winner of the election was decided.
We've all known it was coming, right?
The actual election day, so we have to really urge people to be cautious here, to be patient.
All right.
But the president.
He says he's going to be making a statement. Let me go
accusation that Democrats
Run to the bathroom, refill the drink.
And as you say, it's happened on a number of occasions, not just into the wee hours of the night, but the next day, the end of the week, and of course in 2000, 37 days later when the election was decided. All right, Yamiche is at the White House. John in Wilmington, we are going to be coming back to you as the night goes on. Right now, we're taking a break. Please stay with us. We'll have more special live coverage and the latest results at the top of the hour.
I'm here again with journalist Jeff Greenfield discussing key election moments. And Jeff, racial justice protests in response to the killing of George Floyd by police erupted in a way we had not seen before, all on President Trump's watch. In fact, it was a summer of protests around the country, some violence from protesters, some violence from law enforcement. And then the president, Jeff, has this photo op on June 1st in front of St. John's Church, which some had tried to burn, but he holds up a Bible. Jeff, what would you say about that defining moment of this presidency?
I think it was the president's way of saying that he was going to take this broad issue of racial justice, of protests, mostly peaceful, some not, and turn it basically into a rerun of the 1968 campaign.
Everybody on the stream always makes a big deal about Smokey. Socks is the coolest cat.
Was a major.
He just doesn't hop up here and interrupt the stream.
Really spent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I left you guys on Twitter and not the dude that was talking.
Which most of the country, at least when the protests were peaceful, seemed to have sympathy with. And I think it was a judgment that really set his campaign on a particular path.
The protests were peaceful. Idiots tried to paint it as violent in order to turn public opinion against them.
Well, two questions. How did the Biden campaign respond to that allegation? And you draw the comparison to 68. I think it's important to say that there was a more national support, at least.
There is a great comparison to 68.
Which the president conflated.
And the playbook that the Republicans have been using. Look up the man card on YouTube. They might have taken it down. It was free, like it was a rough cut, and they had it up for free before the election. If it's still up, watch the man card.
The president's attempt to say Biden is really sympathetic to the more violent protests, not as effective as it might otherwise have been. And it is true that back in 68, even Martin Luther King at the time of his death was not seen in particularly favorable terms, and his protests were totally peaceful. By 2020...
He was absolutely painted as violent.
The American people thought at some level the question of racial injustice, the question of what it meant to be a person of color in the United States, had to be addressed with some seriousness, regardless of your politics. And I think the president really wasn't on board with that basic approach.
Jeff Greenfield, thank you so much for that analysis.
I'm really surprised that we haven't gotten a call with Arizona yet. Fox News called it an hour or two ago. We are now entering the 7th hour of this stream.
Coverage of this memorable election. I'm Judy Woodruff, and we are now
gone by pretty fast.
AM hour in the east of the United States of America. There is one state right now where the polls are closing. It is Alaska, the last frontier.
See, I had it backwards. I thought Hawaii was in the other time, because I've been to Hawaii. I thought it was 5 time zones over from the East Coast.
To make on. We are working with the Associated Press, and here they are, the state of Georgia. You can see with 86% of expected vote in, President Trump is leading, but there's still a number of votes that have not been counted. That one is not called.
Predominantly from Atlanta.
Even closer, 94% of the expected vote is in.
Holy
As
shit.
you can see, it's
80,000 votes.
50% for the president, 49% for Joe Biden. This is a state the president won that the president won in 2016. The Democrats would dearly love to take it away. And we see
To move it
close,
back
but
to
we
the
don't
blue.
call in the Tar Heel state. In the state of Maine, Joe
They
Biden
haven't called Maine yet.
of the vote in, but we don't have a final call. That is a state
That looks insurmountable.
It's electoral votes. It's possible there would be. In fact, it's very possible there could be a split. So that's one of the reasons we're waiting to see more of the count in the state of Maine. Pennsylvania, the state we've been talking about all night long. We just heard from Dan Bush. With 64% of the expected vote in, that means a lot of vote still to be counted.
And the vote still to be counted is the mail-in and absentee, which is expected to lean heavily towards Biden.
At this point, 22.6 million votes to 1.9 million for Joe Biden, but still a lot. 36% of the vote is not in. A lot to wait for. And Arizona, this is a state where there is another network that's called it, but the Associated Press is not. We are waiting. 76% of the vote is in. There's something wrong with those numbers. It's 53% Joe Biden, 46% President Trump. But, that's right, 1.3 million votes for Joe Biden and 1.146 million for
Yeah, what was wrong with the numbers? The math adds up, doesn't it?
Important votes that have not been counted, and we continue to wait for Arizona. Michigan, again, a state that President Trump won, stole.
Once again, a state where they have not counted
not literally speaking, but took
absentee mail-in. Same with Wisconsin.
Hillary Clinton and he were contesting the election in 2016. Joe Biden, the Democrats, trying very hard to win it back, with 61% of the expected vote counted.
What's taking so long with Nevada?
You can see he has a 9 percentage point margin, but important votes still out. Not enough to be able to call it. Texas, 81% of the vote is in. The president's leading by 6 percentage
600,000.
But that's a big chunk of the vote. Almost 20% of the vote is out. We don't know where it is. We're waiting. We'll see what happens in the Lone Star State. And in the state of Wisconsin, are we calling this state with?
They're calling it?
The state. We are simply.
I was
saying,
about to
even though it's
say.
just a picture of the president. This is where Wisconsin is. Right
Yeah, it's less than 100,000 votes, with 15% of the vote to go. There's no way they're calling it.
Percent of the vote. We don't see a count for Donald Trump, but there is still not a call, not a declaration in Wisconsin. And now to Nevada, a state that the Democrats won, Hillary Clinton won in 2016. Very early, you see only 3% of the expected vote is in. And so those numbers really don't mean very much that you're looking at. It's so early. We are waiting on Nevada. And that's all we have right now in the way of a count, but also following, or lack of a count, I should say, also following the results with us tonight are national political reporters Erin Haynes. She's editor-at-large of the 19th. It's a new nonprofit digital outlet focused on women and politics, and Robert Costa of the Washington Post and host of PBS's Washington Week. So Bob Costa, to you first. Talking to the campaigns, what are they saying to you? It looks like we are not going to know the results of this election tonight, and maybe not even tomorrow.
Nope.
But the stakes for
I don't see why we wouldn't know by tomorrow night. It seems like
moment in this
they're
election,
counting it pretty
Vice President
fast.
Biden took the stage and said that his campaign, his candidacy, in his view, is well positioned for victory.
They are.
The early vote in places like Wisconsin, in Georgia, and Pennsylvania will be enough to push him over the top. This is setting up a potential political war in this political culture in our country. because President Trump, based on my reporting, will now declare himself to be well positioned for victory. And it's going to be an inch-by-inch fight in the coming days about the legitimacy of the vote from the Trump side and about voter suppression and making sure all votes are counted from the Democratic side. A critical moment for American democracy as this election hangs in the balance.
Well, a critical moment for American democracy, but I'm going to ask a very simple question, Bob Costa. Why isn't it possible for the campaigns to wait for every vote to be counted and to respect the results?
It's a revealing moment on character and how campaigns see their strategy. In past presidential cycles, we saw this in 2000. We saw it in previous.
Oh, wow. It looks like the ballot initiative in California to make Uber and Lyft drivers employees failed.
Made the decision to get out in front of a crowd and make assertions about where he stands in the race. President Trump has chosen to tweet so far tonight and say that he fears the election could be stolen. This is where we are. This is where the election is. It's their decision. And
it looks like Nancy Pelosi has won her race, unfortunately, against Shahid Buttar. I hope that's not the last we've heard of him.
Aaron Haynes, we are heading, if in the description that Bob Costa just laid out, for a fraught hours to come, possibly days to come, in this campaign that could very well affect and will affect the outcome of this election.
It looks like protests have already started in Washington, D.C. after Trump declared victory. So this is a live shot in Washington, D.C. Peaceful thus far. Now this is reporting that it's in just moments, President Trump is expected to address the nation from the White House. He has claimed a big win on Twitter despite trailing in the projected Electoral College count. So they're already protesting the fact that he says he's won. They just called, it looks like the AP is calling Texas for Trump.
With Florida and Texas coming in, late into the evening, that has certainly boosted President Trump's numbers and kind of narrowed the score between he and Vice President Biden in the Electoral College. And it is kind of those big outstanding prizes, places like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin, like Michigan, much like 2016. It is coming down to kind of that same handful of states that we are still waiting to get the results on. And so, letting this process play out, the idea election day is about one person, one vote. And so, letting that process
So
play out.
with Texas, that's my second one I got wrong. Iowa and Texas.
Tuesday, and that is exactly the moment in which we now
third, Florida.
And so, I do think that letting this be about the American people now. I mean, they have cast.
But I knew I was going out on a limb, calling Georgia and Texas for the Democrats.
In the ways that frankly they have been framing it. Joe Biden was saying, let's let the process play out, even as President Trump was saying, that this election is potentially rigged and Democrats could be trying to steal it from me. And so I think that we're exactly where we expected to be in this phase of the election. And, we'll just have to keep the same patience that so many voters had throughout this process to see what happens on the other side.
Well, it's certainly our intention here at the NewsHour at PBS to be patient and to wait until each one of these states is called and to cover what the candidates themselves and their campaigns are saying at the same time. Robert Costa, Aaron Haynes, thank you both. And we will come back to you.
Sarah Gideon in Maine is saying that it's clear that it won't be called tonight.
Who follows all things complicated for the NewsHour. He's been
So apparently apparently her campaign is getting information that there's still vote to be counted, possibly mail-in, that might lean her way.
to be counted, and you're at one of the places where they are struggling to get it done.
Yes, Judy, and it is a bit of a struggle. You can see behind me, it's a busy place right now as they bring in all the electronic gear, which was deployed at over 250 precincts in Fulton County today for the voting today. But what's interesting about this, so there's a little nuance here that's important to point out. We've been talking about how early voting gives an advantage to getting results out sooner, but there's a little asterisk to all that. All those early voting scanners, all those ballots that were scanned in, cannot be tabulated until today by law in Georgia. And so there's a big backlog back behind me, a group of people who are going through the scanners that have been in the early voting locations over the past...
So this is all the early voting, and it's in Atlanta. A double whammy of favoring Democrats in a race that is still...
Forklift is coming through here with some of the equipment. Come on through.
250,000. Still incredibly close.
And in any case, they despite the fact that they got a leg up on the voting, they weren't able to do the final tally. Now, the other side of it in this case is the mail-in ballots. They had a little problem this morning, of all things, a pipe burst in the location where they were doing the tabulating, the scanning. And that has set them back on that. So they're not going to finish that up until tomorrow. Now, nearby, Gwinnett County, they had a huge problem with their software, which has delayed some of their ability to go through some of these mail-in ballots. So there's a lot of technical nuance to it, which is kind of coming home to roost at these final hours. And it's going to push the results for Fulton, DeKalb County, the blue center part.
The really blue part.
Into tomorrow, and that gives you an idea of why we're still unsure about a lot of votes.
So I may very well have called it with Georgia that it flips to Biden.
About the other side of the early vote, that it does present some challenges in terms of counting. But Miles, are they telling you they plan to just continue counting until they finish? Will they take a break tonight? What is their plan?
Hey.
I don't know if you
just
can
come
hear
in
me.
here for 1 sec, Judy. I apologize. I don't want to be clobbered.
You definitely don't want to.
Here's what they're going to do tonight. Here's what they're going to do tonight. They are going to finish all the early voting tabulation for sure tonight, no matter how long it takes. What they're going to do is they're going to count up to 100,000 mail-in ballots, and then they're going to quit and start over tomorrow. So it is going to rock on until tomorrow here. And that's why we don't have any conclusion as far as Georgia goes at this point. It's too close right now.
Too close. A lot of votes yet to count. And as I hear you
That's
saying,
what we are probably frozen at this moment in time on the map right now.
all right, Miles, stay safe. Stay away from that.
Maybe Nevada, Arizona get called.
It's going back and forth, forklift. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We can't lose you, Miles. All right, we're going to go to two of our wonderful analysts right now.
Now, I always really...
Who's joining us from California, Michael Beschloss.
When I was doing terrestrial broadcasting, being on location and shit like that happening was always really cool, you know? It gives the viewers this insight. And I remember at the TV station I worked at, the anchor always used to do these Facebook Lives before he would go on the air for the news. But, you know, in the 5 to 10 minutes before a newscast starts, we as the production staff always had certain things that we had to do. And one of the things that I'm really focused on is sound. And I always wanted to make sure that the anchors sounded good. And we had a real problem with our mics over-modulating. So it was very important to do a sound check before they would go on the air. And I would, yell at him to do a sound check, and he'd be like, I'm on Facebook Live. And the director was like, that's cool, though. You're on Facebook Live, and you're doing the sound check and everything. That's neat for the viewers. gives him that inside thing. But I mean, I understand, like, I guess he had a train of thought he was doing. But, you know, you're also just talking to people taking comments back. He didn't declare victory. I'm upset that Biden didn't act like he was president already. Trump absolutely said he declared victory. Speaking of which, actually, I do have Ben Shapiro's reaction to that. So let's...
Right now, Joe Biden is about to take the stage.
Let's see what you're talking about.
Remarks. Let's go to Vice President Joe Biden and hear what he has to say on this strange and unsettled evening.
Declare victory then.
About to come out, and to me it's reminiscent of what we saw in the primary.
You heard me say it before.
I wanted Shapiro's...
Walk out of my grandpa's house up over here.
That's just Biden. I wanted Shapiro's fucking reaction to it.
Vice President Joe Biden and his wife Jill Biden saying this race isn't over, saying he feels good, count every vote.
So
he's going to go call it on the night and go back to sleep. We're going to hear something from President Trump based on this because it's going to go into the morning hours. That is where we are at this point in time.
I was hoping he would lose his shit. That's one of the things about being on this account is I don't have any of the, you know, rando QAnon supporters and shit.
If Georgia...
I'm going to pull up my personal account and see what these assholes are saying. It is going to be fun.
Possible. That changes the entire dimension of what is going to be measured tomorrow. It makes Pennsylvania almost an afterthought if Biden can take Michigan and Wisconsin. So the Council of Patience is doubly important, and it also explains why...
He's got multiple different paths.
To make the argument that the voting count must stop, because he knows full well that when those early vote and mail-in ballots are counted in those key states, it's going to be very good, almost certainly, for Biden.
Jeff, your point is that there are enough electoral votes.
He's correct.
If Joe Biden were to win Arizona and Georgia.
Joe Biden is winning Arizona.
One of those states in the Midwest. Go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly. Arizona has 16 electoral votes. I can't remember offhand what Georgia is. Georgia was being left for dead.
Apparently they hadn't called Rhode Island for Joe Biden yet, and they just did.
Atlanta. And now that's very much...
I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice that it wasn't filled in on the map over here.
Pennsylvania is the new Florida. Again,
that adds 4 more to the total.
Michael, let's see what happens overnight with these other states.
Right. Arizona, 11 electoral votes. Georgia, 16. But the point is, it puts it a lot closer. And just quickly, Michael Beschloss, I think it's important that we all counsel patience, that we counsel... don't rush into this. There's so much at stake. What are we in a hurry for?
We are not sticking a piece of bread into a toaster that's supposed to pop it up within 60 seconds. We're having a presidential election, maybe the most important presidential election we have ever had in American history. We have to be patient. We have to count all the votes.
Somebody tweeted out, "It's not looking good for Kanye."
Right, and that is what I'm leaving this conversation with. Michael Beschloss, Jeff Greenfield, thank you.
Was Judy throwing some shade?
And we have a race call to make, and I'm going to look at the screen and I'll tell you
Rhode Island?
as soon as I see.
Oh.
And that is that the Democrats are holding on to the Senate seat in the state of Minnesota. Tina Smith, who was challenged by Jason Lewis, she is, it's now been a few hours since the polls closed in Minnesota, but she has held on with 90% of the expected vote in. You see she's got about 50% to Jason Lewis's 43%. So that is a hold for the Democrats. Amna and Lisa, there's so much to talk about. Where are you even going to begin?
We're going to stay right where you left us, in the Senate. We're going to talk a little bit more about the balance of power that's at stake there. Lisa, Republicans have had the majority there since 2014. They're fighting to keep it. How are they doing tonight?
I mean, very critical to so many parts of our government is who is in charge of the Senate. Here's where we are right now at this moment: 45 Democratic seats, 46 Republican. But look at those seats in the middle, still to be determined. We've got 9 outstanding still. So let's go through, let me talk first of all about where we are right now. Already, Republicans have 2 seats they wanted to hold on, Kansas and Iowa. So Democrats are looking at seats like this one, North Carolina. They really could use this seat if they're going to take over the Senate right now.
And he was leading in the polls all the way up until today.
We don't have all these votes in. This is going to be a close one. Let's look at Georgia.
But once again, this is North Carolina.
They think they still have a
It's
chance.
probably the mail-in ballot, which is going to lean
This is the incumbent senator,
Democratic.
races in Georgia. The other one's going to.
I don't know that that's going to be enough to get Ossoff the win in Georgia.
But you know we have.
But Biden is still within striking distance.
Republican source who's involved.
Only down about 250,000
There are a lot of
votes.
votes in Atlanta that have not come in yet. Those are expected to be Democratic votes. So this margin is going to change, and the Republicans think it will not change in their favor. They don't know by how much. Let's look at another critical Senate race that.
I'm rooting you on, Ossoff.
Senate, look at that. Maine, Susan Collins, right now ahead, 51 to 43. That's a very large margin. The 81% of expected vote. Now, Maine is a little bit funky because they have ranked voting, and there are 2 other candidates, party candidates and fourth party candidates on the ballot, and they will go to sort of an instant runoff in this state if neither of these candidates gets 51%. But if Collins can get 51%, this race could be declared a lot sooner than anyone expected, but still a lot of votes out. One other thing about this Maine Senate race I want to tell everybody. Susan Collins is right now ahead at the same time as Joe Biden is ahead in Maine. That is something her campaign really has wanted to see, and they feel very good about.
And wow. Democrats, this is one of the Senate seats. They was really their top target, right?
Yeah,
hoping
you know,
to flip this.
At this point tonight, Senate, and as Amy has said, the Republicans and Democrats are now even. So Democrats still need to pick up 3 seats if Biden wins the White House in the Senate, or 4 seats if he does not. So these are the 3 seats that they think are most available. They also can't lose any other seats. That brings me to the state of Michigan. Let's look at this. Democrat incumbent Gary Peters falling behind John James, the Republican.
Still just 61%, once again, mail-in vote.
I just don't think we can read much into this. Michigan has a long count ahead, and also we just aren't quite clear. I don't have any really good information on where the outstanding votes are, but it's notable that right now the Democrat is not way out in front. We'll see what happens if these votes over here in the Detroit area are outstanding or not, because that will make a lot of the difference for Gary Peters and also for Joe Biden, who needs to win this state to become president.
Obviously, a lot of reasons to keep a very close eye on Michigan. And so important to point out, it's not just how many votes or how much of the expected vote is outstanding, it's where those votes are.
Right. And when they are. Were they early? Were they today? So many.
So once again, just to point out, this actually looks better than what I thought it would at this point in time.
About toasters and talking about chess, but yes, there's a lot going on.
Not putting a piece of bread in a toaster. We're going to.
I thought that it was very likely that Trump would look like he was ahead.
Well, that was very helpful and so interesting in Michigan to see the incumbent Democrat in trouble.
You know, the bottom line is the
we'll
Senate very much within reach for Democrats right now, but some of the seats they hope to pick up are not there. Democrats are not having a big night. In some ways, Republicans, I think, are much happier right now than they thought they would be.
But these could shift as well, Judy. Remember, some of these in-person, on-the-day votes are coming in first, so we will see shifts.
That is the message of the night. We'll see shifts. Amna and Lisa, thank you very much. And now I'm turning to 2 of our analysts, Gary Abernathy, who is a contributing columnist for the Washington Post. He joins us from Cincinnati. And Patricia Lopez, she's an editorial writer for the Star Tribune in St. Paul, Minnesota. So, Patricia Lopez, I'm going to come to you first this time. We are seeing a tougher night for Democrats in terms of picking up, or in this case, maybe they're losing. We just looked at some early results in the state of Michigan, only 61% of the vote in. We don't have the whole story yet in Michigan. But Democrats' hopes, I think, in the Senate.
So there's the flip on Nevada.
Senators not quite coming together.
Now they got about 50% of the vote counted. Biden is pulling ahead.
It's true. It is not the night they had hoped for. They had hoped to pick up some Senate seats that Republicans managed to hang on to. Some, I think, we still don't know. Again, many states have absentee ballots that are still being still going to be counted for a day or two, and that is
all right. Trump, when you walking out?
You know, here in Minnesota, Republicans were door knocking They were holding rallies, very traditional style of election politics. Democrats put much of their effort into signing up voters, early voting, digital contacts, texting messages. That may have fallen short of the mark for them in some of these areas where they needed more of a boost. But I don't think we know the full picture yet. Again, there are just pockets of votes out here and there that are going to...
California has restored the right to vote.
Even some of the calls may have...
For felony convictions.
Depending on how things go.
So hell yeah, California. That's awesome.
President Trump will be speaking at some point in the coming minutes, hours. We're waiting to find out when that might happen. We know he is at the White House, and as soon as we know the time, we will share that with you. But Gary Abernathy, you are there in Cincinnati. The president has tweeted tonight that he said we are ahead big, and the Democrats are trying to steal the election. What does that say about his approach? Is that something that you think lends itself to the Democratic process?
Sarah McBride in Delaware makes history as the country's first openly transgender state senator.
To him to do that, Judy.
Hell yeah, Sarah. Congratulations.
There is a scenario that hasn't been discussed too much, and that is, let's count all the votes. Let's take as much time as necessary, 2 or 3 days, count every last vote, and the result is a Trump victory. I think that's actually very likely. And so when that happens, I mentioned to you earlier the problem of Trump winning the Electoral College but losing the popular vote, and how this has happened. This will
3 times in my lifetime.
Twice to him. It happened once to George W. Bush. But the Democrats also have to ask themselves, why can't they win the states they need to win the Electoral College? Are they happy to win a popular vote because they win so big in just 2 or 3 states like California, New York, or whatever? So both parties, have reason to examine their message and to say, why are we only resonating with a certain part of the country and not other parts of the country?
It's certainly the question of the hour, the question of the night. We don't
misinformation,
results of this election yet.
Propaganda.
Watching, as we've been discussing all night,
the people that watch Fox News just live in a goddamn fantasy world.
For Democrats have not come in. They are not overwhelming returns. The Democrats are certainly holding on to states that they had in the past, but we don't see the kind of turnover that Democrats had hoped for. What does that say, do you think, about the Democratic message in these states that they are trying to win but are having a tough time in?
Well, they have picked up some. Colorado, flipped. I think Montana as well. But yes, I think both parties are going to need to work on their messaging a little bit. As was pointed out earlier, the electoral.
Well, one of the biggest problems is that they're both trying to court a Venn diagram of voters that overlap.
Win the popular vote, but that doesn't get you the president.
They're trying to.
So whatever the flaws are in their messaging,
appeal to the likely voters that they think lean conservative.
Their messages a bit, and
so that they can be able to take corporate money.
I still think, frankly, is where most people.
Because if you want to appeal to the majority of the people in this country,
the more, you see
you have to adopt policies
people feel left out of those
that millionaires and billionaires don't really care for.
There is a sense, from President
So
Trump,
if you want to still drink from the gravy boat,
talk about issues and the language he uses to talk about his opponents, that he is appealing to the extremes. Is it possible?
You've only got a small segment of the electorate that you can appeal to, and that's why Biden's
some middle ground here.
Biden's strategy was to peel off Republicans.
Yes. And both sides need.
Which obviously, it may be enough to squeak out a win, but it didn't overwhelmingly work.
I would hope that he would finally pivot that way a little bit. I don't know if he will, but on the other hand, Democrats need to find a way to
this country is over if Trump is reelected. He's already said he's going to fire the head of the FBI, the CIA, and the Joint Chiefs.
Second Amendment on those issues, and
his reason for doing that is because they wouldn't prosecute
not demonizing.
his political opponents. He will absolutely move to try to jail President Obama, Hillary Clinton, Adam Schiff,
and overall,
anybody that he has seen as trying to stand in his way. That is what is going to happen in the second Trump term.
Patricia Lopez,
Full-on fascism.
Democrats don't need to find a way to moderate as well. It's just that I'm struck.
And one of the problems is these yuppie-ass liberals treating Trump like he's just a fucking normal politician.
Listening to him at rallies in recent days and throughout his presidency, using some strong language and appealing to
fascist language.
Many times. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Patricia Lopez, thank you, and Gary Abernathy, thank you. We are going to come back to you. Right now I want to go to
yes.
help us sort of sum up what are we dealing with here.
He is going to fire the people that have stood in his way. It will be at full-on fascism should he win.
And in some ways,
and that should scare the shit out of everyone.
The numbers, while they are different, both
and it will be Obama first.
Improving on the numbers.
And it's sad because people are going to cheer him on.
That Donald Trump got in these states.
We all know there's a whole segment of the population that is salivating at the notion of Obama getting put in jail.
But same with Donald Trump. So we just seem to be...
I don't know that if I was Obama that I wouldn't be, in a different country right now.
A state that a 2016 candidate won. And we kind of come back to where we ended 2016, which was waiting for Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan to be called to have any real sense of what's going on. But it is, as I said, it's going to be remarkable that we look back at this time of so much tumult, so much chaos, so much news.
Yeah.
And the numbers, just the raw numbers themselves, if you just look at the Electoral College.
I'm tired of it. I am tired of this reality show.
Haven't changed all that much.
It is something to reflect on. You're right, because this has been a tumultuous 4 years. It's been a news-filled 4 years. The media, all of us in the news media, tried in varying degrees of success to cover.
But it's
faithfully what's going on in Washington, but it's been quite a spectacle.
All the liberals and the leftists being upset and crying has just emboldened the Trump supporters.
And I think
it doesn't matter that he tried to fucking kill them. If we're crying, that's all that matters to them. Crying or triggered or whatever.
Sources of information are to voters, whether they're getting it through the social media, whether they're getting it from television, what they're seeing in their Facebook feeds, all of those things make it so much harder for a country to sort of come together at a moment instead of living in these two very separate camps. And it looks like that's exactly where we are right now, where
it's going to continue.
Kind of decided this is the camp I'm in, and there's almost nothing that's going to dissuade me, no matter what we see going on. Again, pandemic.
But hey, this is the first time I have voted for a Democrat in over a decade. I stand behind the vote. I feel like it was my civic duty.
Very important. Correct. All states are important, but we don't have results yet. Arizona.
And all through this year, I said the entire time that I would not vote for Biden, that I would write in Bernie,
Michigan, Wisconsin,
or that I would vote third party like I always do.
I may have left one out, but your point is that the picture we have at this moment is one that looks a lot like 2016. Both candidates
legalizing psychedelic mushrooms.
It's different.
Fuck yeah. Right. No, we totally care about things like that. We've been going over the propositions in California.
Really close last time.
We gave a shout out to the transgendered state senator.
Sunbelt states, they thought they could.
All right, Amy Walsh.
I am incredibly happy to hear that you guys
Experience in campaigns
have legalized psychedelic
senior
mushrooms.
advisor to the Republican National Committee.
Perhaps I need to come visit you.
At the Trump White House.
I'm a big fan of the
Democratic strategy
psilocybin.
polling operation for the Obama-Biden campaigns in 2008 and 2012. Joel Benenson, we've talked about this all night long, to a blowout or mini blowout not happening.
That's your response for me saying I want to come visit you?
Joe Biden has spoken for a few minutes. He's expressed great optimism that he's going to carry enough states to land him in the White House.
He's going to.
Trump has tweeted that he feels good about the results, and by the way, he thinks the Democrats are trying to steal the election. So where are we?
Well, I think I may have said this.
It's perfect for somebody like me who is incredibly artistic
About a 50-50 country. We don't
and
have
wants to go out and lay in the snow and look at the curvature of the earth.
if Donald
Not saying I've done that before.
he will be, I believe, the first president to be elected and reelected with the Electoral College without winning the popular vote in our history.
Yep.
You know, it's unfortunate. It's the system we have. We have only one chance to have a national election every 4 years. And at some point, we ought to really rethink the Electoral College and think about whether or not the American people...
I've been screaming about it.
...this arcane system that our founders settled on, you know...
And one of the reasons they settled on it was because of the Three-Fifths Compromise. It's racist as shit.
A lot of counting left to be done. It looks like Joe Biden will win the popular vote, and I think it's coming down to the same...
I want to come visit you. Shit.
And whoever prevails...
Oh, it's just for medical? But is it like a wink-wink just for medical? Like, you know, I have trouble sleeping.
And
I have depression.
Katie Walsh, is that what it
Kind of like the way pot was in California.
These candidates are fighting over the same states that slipped into Donald Trump's column in 2016, with the exception of Biden and Arizona?
Well, I think we still feel good about Arizona. I think we're not going to know about Arizona for at least another 20
I want to watch the Northern Lights on a glacier. God damn, that's fucking cool.
Michigan, Pennsylvania, which are states that, you know, obviously...
I've done some awesome shit in my life, but I've never looked at the Northern Lights on a glacier.
I think we feel very good about where we are right now with them. But one of the points Joel made about the president...
Here's a Maynard James kitten right there.
...winning the Electoral College in 16 and in 20 if he ends up winning this year.
He's not going to.
If you take the state of California out of the popular vote, the president actually wins the popular vote in the United States. And so,
if you take the most populous state out of the equation, he actually wins the popular vote.
Population in it, and so if you kind of take California out, it comes back to one of the things you said earlier, which is we are kind of a 50-50 country. And the popular vote's actually very close if you take the state of California and kind of...
And if I had wheels, I'd be a wagon.
It shows you a different picture.
Fuck.
But it is part of the United States.
You can make the same argument about Texas. I mean, let's not color this in one way or the other. They are both.
I like this guy. Responding back to her bullshit all through the night.
This isn't just about removing one state or the other. The fact of the matter is, this is a national election, and you know, you got to play by the rules. We win by them. We lose by them. I don't think we're going to...
Ironically, you are aware that Oregon was founded as a white supremacist state, correct?
And Katie Walsh...
And from what I hear outside of Portland,
the allegation that the Democrats are trying to...
it's still very easy to tell that it was founded as a white supremacist state.
I think the president's been seeing news reports for a couple of weeks now about ballots being lost in Pennsylvania, about finding, you know, kind of groups...
He's been seeing bullshit.
Things as such, and Joel's talked about this. I think the president ultimately wants a fair and free election, and he just wants to make sure all the votes are counted. And I think ultimately that's what you'll see him fight for the next few days.
But
he's getting ready to come out and declare himself the victor.
In fact, we've talked to a number...
He already said it on Twitter.
Election security experts tonight, throughout the night, and they say there's just been no evidence, a few isolated incidences, but nothing that amounts to any sort of orchestrated effort or anything that would...
I hope that's right for today, and I'm sure it's not an orchestrated effort. I mean, we did see in some of the absentee votes coming in earlier, you know, ballots were kind of found on the side of the road in some instances. I mean,
What the fuck is she talking about?
And so, I don't know if per se election day there's been an orchestrated effort. I don't think the president's accusing anyone of that. I think he's just said, look, there's been evidence that some ballots have been misplaced, that some ballots wind up on the side of the road, and so the president just wants to make sure that every ballot's counted.
Joel, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, there's a funny thing about this.
But I have been told. I went to dinner at a pizza place in Atlanta, and the waitress came up and was like, "Have you ever been to Portland?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "You would love it there, just by my looks." So I started singing "The Dream of the '90s" is alive in Portland.
Where people say there's all this voter fraud, people don't see it. They don't hear it because it doesn't exist.
I didn't know about the KKK founded the university.
We'll come back later.
I didn't know that.
For more. Joel Benenson, Katie Walsh, thank you both. And let's return now to our analysts who've been with us all this night. The New York Times columnist David Brooks, Washington Post columnist Jonathan Capehart, and the editor...
I want to get to Trump because, honestly,
Johnson and Amy...
we're probably not going to have any more news tonight.
David Brooks, make some sense of...
I want to hear Trump talk.
Well, about 3 weeks ago, we thought we'd be exactly where we are, which is that a long, drawn-out night. It would look pretty good for Republicans, and then probably over the next 24, 36, 48 hours, it'll begin to look better and better for Democrats.
Yep.
Then I think in the last couple weeks, we had a bunch of polls showing like a 10-point Biden lead nationally.
Wow.
And it seemed to be a sign that maybe there would be a...
Yeah, I didn't know all of that about Oregon. I actually learned that from the
to me, the crucial
podcast Behind the Bastards.
Republican, you see a 14, 15-point Biden lead.
And they did like a 5-part series on white supremacy in America, and that's when I found out
Georgia
that Oregon was founded as a white supremacist state.
And the question to me is, do those voters think, well, there have been senators who are outstanding, the absentee ballots, we're going to lean Biden, so...
I'm not there is nothing keeping me here at all other than it's where my stuff is right now.
Until the end. What are they doing?
And I don't like moving.
And so it's really a question of our social trust and social cohesion.
I work for myself, and I can do that from anywhere.
Together. I really don't know the answer to that.
Believe me, I don't want to be in the South any longer. I was going to move this year, but there's kind of a plague going on. I'm so Jordan, I'm sorry if you're still in here.
At some point in the wee hours of the morning, we don't know yet what time that will be, but of course we'll go there.
You might be right about that. Because, he's in the White House. I assume it's incredibly easy to go... what's that hallway where they always do the press conferences, or to go live from the Oval Office?
I think we are capable. That's not to say that we won't be anxious, we won't be biting our nails, as I said the last time, we won't be chugging wine, that we do want an answer, but I do think that we are capable of making it through.
I'm sorry.
The process. I think the fact that there were court challenges and federal courts coming back and consistently...
You're exactly right. He probably is getting hyped up on something. I assume they've been keeping him animated with drugs over the last few weeks. Everyone that I have talked to that has had the COVID has said they don't feel well for at least a month.
But brief discussion, talk by Joe Biden.
No energy at all.
And we pretty much know what he's going to say, given what he's already tweeted. And then I think we will...
I want to see his demeanor. It's not so much that I want to hear what he has to say, because I've been calling it for days, weeks, that he was going to come out and declare victory.
Will continue.
Eliana Johnson, what does it mean?
I want to see his demeanor because I don't think that he is going to look like a man that is confident that he's getting ready to win the presidency. He hasn't looked like a man that was confident that he was getting ready to win the presidency for the last month or two.
The way 2020 has unfolded, I almost think, despite the polling, that it's to be expected that we have an arduous and drawn-out election, given that we're grappling with a pandemic and
What's also sad that it has taken wave elections twice in my lifetime to rid us of the Republicans that fucked up the country. Twice! twice now.
Reading was slightly different than David's, in that I feel like
And it takes an overwhelming win
large lead for Biden
by the Democrats in order to be able to even break even, it seems.
stable race than we saw in 2016.
They have to be giving him steroid packs,
in order to boost people's trust in
shooting him up with something.
I just think that at least among Republicans and conservatives, there's going to be a real hesitancy.
There's always been the rumor that he was on Adderall hardcore.
It seems to me there's a deficit of trust.
As I understand it, he is incredibly against illegal drugs,
right now, and I agree.
but will take anything a doctor prescribes him.
Now I'm wondering, why did I waste my time on that? Because in some cases they were right, to be fair, but in a lot of cases...
Which, if I remember my history correctly, that's exactly the way Hitler and Elvis were.
And it's just hard. It's clearly a very hard
They talked shit about drug users all the time. But they didn't consider themselves drug users because they got their drugs from doctors, even though they're basically the same chemical compounds.
You know, we have to have trust to keep our
Elvis actually tried to get Richard Nixon to deputize him to go out and arrest drug dealers. And apparently he would go out with a fucking Magnum or something in his convertible on the streets of Memphis, hyped up on drugs,
a lot with the pandemic.
and try to shoot street dealers.
To have this very hard-fought, angry election.
This was fat Elvis, apparently.
It's a greater source of stress, I think, for many Americans.
It is, although I have to say I am very heartened. Maybe I'm being premature here, but by the fact that it seems as if Americans are saying, oh, okay, we'll wait. Now, I don't know if that's going to last. Obviously, my worry is that there are going to be nefarious...
He's got an incredibly good reason to sound bleak.
Push people to question results that come out in the days...
Yeah, we never did look up that interview.
That follow, in the hours that follow. But I do think that at this moment in time, the fact that, again, it seems like these predictions that it was going to be melting down and people would be taken to the streets to demand that the Electoral College be called by tonight have not come to pass.
Oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. Now, I did think that people would take to the streets should Trump try to declare himself the winner, and apparently, that's already happened.
I know.
So here we go, Trump on Fox and Friends this morning.
The RNC to build a network of people who you registered and who could get out the vote, especially for today. And so it all comes down to that. But for the person who is undecided on this election day morning.
Why does he never zoom in? Why is it always on the phone?
Joe Biden. But they've had a rough year. The pandemic has been tough on everybody. Maybe somebody in their family.
They've got broadcasting equipment in the White House. He could easily do a fucking remote.
What do you say to that person to say, go give me another 4 years. Let's not switch horses right now?
Well, it's, become pretty standard. We've built the greatest economy in the world. It was horribly interrupted by something that should have never happened. Came in from China, the plague.
Damn, he sounds like he's been crying.
Horrible situation. And we had to shut it down, and we had to shut it down, and we did the right thing. We saved 2 million people. We saved a lot of people. Do you think
he stays in bed?
2 million.
Like I do? Like I fucking lay in bed on my phone for like 3 hours of a morning?
We saved 2 million.
It sounds lazy, but a lot of times I'm selecting stories for my show.
We had the best economy. We had the best. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. And now what happens is we build it up again, and we are doing it at a record clip. You saw the 33.1 on Thursday. That's
he sounds sick, deflated.
And we're on a shape to build this up to a level that nobody's ever seen anything like it. I really.
Yeah, that's not his normal energy. But also, he has been campaigning nonstop. This is like, I think he had a rally until 2 o'clock in the morning. So he's probably been up all night, in his defense, which I won't do very often.
That will be fantastic. Now, in addition to that, we are doing very well And I say rounding the corner. Some people don't like that phrase, but
because we're not. It's the worst it's ever been.
Vaccines, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. We have
Nebraska has been called for Trump,
companies, but we have many companies.
which is odd because I fucking thought they called Nebraska for Trump hours ago.
Very quickly, and that will be that. It's going to be. We will, tame originally, but ultimately get rid of the China plague.
Well, I'm just he did like 5 rallies yesterday, and he was up until like fucking 2.
Disease.
He might not have been to bed. And you know what? Like fucking.
I tell the story about Barron Trump. He had it for about 2 seconds.
I can't imagine being a presidential candidate. I'm sure they don't sleep the days before the election.
The children back to work.
That's what the dude on PBS said. Joe Biden needs to go like take a nap or something. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
We have to open up our states, and that'll happen. And I think now, politically, that will.
I couldn't imagine that if I was in that position that I would be able to sleep on election day, after election day, until I was declared winner.
On your screen, why does this matter? Well, because if this does in fact come down to the wire,
Yeah, Nebraska does proportional voting.
where the electoral vote count ends up, that one electoral vote could make a difference. And on top of that, I believe I'm correct in that, is this the, Amy can correct me, is this the first pickup for the Democratic candidate in this race?
Yes, it is. Well done, Amna.
Thank you so much.
If you don't count Arizona.
About Nebraska, too. If the lead for Joe Biden holds up in Arizona, and he wins
That's
Wisconsin,
11.
right, and he holds Wisconsin and Michigan.
That's 10 and 16.
Then he doesn't need Pennsylvania to hit 270. So that's 270 electoral votes without Pennsylvania,
I think he's going to win Georgia.
without North Carolina. So Nebraska 2, little Omaha,
that
is a very critical. Now, the president hoping to.
Because that was one of the reasons why Trump held a rally in Nebraska, and I'm like, why is he in Nebraska? And that's why I found out the next day that they do proportional votes.
Sits right now. Maine is taking a long time to count their votes, but if Biden can win that, that's taking even one more vote away from Trump's total. Which, if it's in a really close race, that matters.
So it's one vote, but this is a race where literally every single electoral vote.
Every single vote counts, and we have to remember there are tens of thousands of votes that are still out there uncounted. And
Breed Creed called her Katie Lang, but I think she's
That's Arizona.
like great value brand Rachel Maddow, isn't she?
Right. Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Right.
And not Pennsylvania.
And
Correct.
this is
And
if
that's
he loses
270.
if he does not win Pennsylvania. Now, it's one of those other paths that Joe Biden has to victory.
I think a lot of people at home, the people who are still awake, still with us, thank you for being with us, are probably playing the same game we all are, and my sources are there. I think what we have now is the paths are narrowing for both of these candidates, right? Which is just what happened in 2016. We're waiting to see who flips. But at the same time, I think we're seeing in a bigger picture, historians will look at this night and see what all of your panelists have talked about, this cementing of this real shift. It's not just a divide. I think there's a real shift in how Americans have oriented themselves. And I think we talk about so many things. We talk about race, but I think
Joe Biden won 2 electoral votes in Nebraska because they award their electoral votes based on congressional districts. So Biden won the congressional district that Omaha, Nebraska is in, therefore winning a couple of Nebraska's 5 electoral votes. Maine does the same thing.
And this country is changing within itself.
Yeah, the Democrats struggled with those groups in 2016, and this seems to be an affirmation of that.
Because it really flipped me out that Trump was campaigning in Nebraska just 2 or 3 days before the election.
Those folks without a college education.
But that tells you that he knew the Electoral College would be incredibly close and that he might need those 2 votes.
Waiting to hear from President Trump. We don't know exactly when, but we're told that's coming. But meantime,
that's what we're waiting on right now.
Lights in Wilmington, what's going on?
They emptied the parking lot. The drive-in rally has driven home. They are still here. The campaign officials are still here watching the numbers come in from the various slow counting returns, but they say that they don't expect any definitive answer tonight. As you've been discussing on the set, the states that will decide this are still being counted.
Or saying they're going to take a break. Pennsylvania's like, yeah, we're going to pack it up for the night.
So that
start again in the morning.
The numbers will come later. And as they've been saying all along, they believe that if all the votes that have been cast are counted, that they'll end up winning both the electoral vote and the popular vote. And to underscore what
absolutely
Amy and Lisa have been saying about Nebraska too, if Biden were to win Arizona, where he has got a big lead based on early votes, and Wisconsin and Michigan, states that the campaign says they feel very good about based on the early votes and what the reports they have of today votes, of election day votes, but lose Pennsylvania, that would be a 269 to 269 tie between Biden and Trump. That one electoral vote from Nebraska would make it 270 on the nose for Biden, 268 for Trump.
That's why we were spending some time talking about it, because with Amy's math, you look at Arizona 11, Wisconsin 10, Michigan 6. He needs 38. If you are counting from where Hillary Clinton was, he needs 38 votes to get to 270, more electoral votes. And that would put him there if he were to win Arizona, win Wisconsin, win Michigan, and as we've just said, he has
Fox News called Arizona for him 2-3 hours ago now.
Omaha congressional district in the state of Nebraska.
I think I have no concept of time.
John, at this point, and anybody who's listening, I'm looking for an answer. Of all the votes that are out there to be counted, are they still being counted tonight? Is it possible we could know a result tonight? It sounds as if, I mean, Pennsylvania's gone home. We heard that from Dan Bush. They're not going to continue counting through the night. I'm not clear on the situation in Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia.
Georgia sounded like a clusterfuck.
Don't expect Georgia.
In Milwaukee, I believe they are. Yeah.
Go ahead.
In Milwaukee, I believe they're still counting because they hope. In Milwaukee, I believe they're still counting because they say that they hope to have numbers by early Wednesday morning. I had to think for a second about what day was after Tuesday, or early Wednesday morning.
That's a man who has been going nonstop for a couple of days.
On the ground have been telling me that the reason they have hope.
And I do not miss, the week before Election Day in terrestrial broadcasting.
Is Atlanta.
Especially when I was the news director. Holy shit.
For Biden, they have seen that Trump lead narrow as the night's gone on. I don't know what the...
Luckily for me, while I was responsible for all of the news copy and the stories and the analysis,
exactly where you...
The actual on-air duties were done by the,
some difficulties there. All right, we have a race to
the voice of the radio station. And he took great pride in doing it. So I was only
Senate race in the state of Montana.
I was like the reporter being called in
Steve Daines,
to tell what's going on, and he was the Judy.
I'm sorry, I'm told there's some...
What?
Okay, I'll keep on. Steve Daines holds this seat in the state of Montana. He was challenged by the very...
And that was one the Democrats were really hoping
Governor
to pick up.
Steve Bullock, who ran for president of the United States for a while. It was the battle of the two Steves. 80% of the expected vote is in. And right now, Steve Daines, the Republican, will come back to Washington. We're still watching, I think, the governor's race in the state of... no, we're not watching it. That is a pickup for the Republicans. Steve Bullock was the governor. Mike Cooney was his lieutenant governor. I believe I'm right.
Greg Gianforte. I know that name. He did something stupid at some point in time.
Greg Gianforte, who will now be...
Gianforte, I said it wrong.
Will now be Montana's governor. That's 80% of the vote. Greg Gianforte winning, who put let's see, I wrote this down, Amy. He put a lot of his own money into the race, and I wrote.
Seriously, he has said something stupid at some point in time.
$dollars of his personal fortune he spent to win.
A lot of money went into Montana. I remember talking to
Gianforte was convicted of sexual assault, or convicted of assault in state court, stemming from his election eve body slamming of a reporter. Yeah, it's that guy. I knew him from somewhere.
Judy, this is a big blow to Democrats in their hopes of taking control of the Senate. This was another one of those seats that they put in play thanks to the fact that they had a popular governor as their nominee in Steve Bullock. Right. But it also is confirming something that, again, we saw in 2016, which is thus far there has not been a state that a Senate candidate has carried that their presidential candidate has not also carried. So in other words, the states that Trump has been declared the winner, the Republican has won, even in those really close contests like Iowa. We don't have North Carolina yet, but we do have Texas, we do have Montana, and those all the way down the ballot seem to be going for the party that won at the presidential level.
Yeah, we did see John James ahead in
We did, but
Michigan,
we have a lot of questions
there. A lot of votes
about
out.
Michigan and
looking
what's
at
out.
that yet. And we're also waiting for Alaska. The polls closed there. That Senate race, Dan Sullivan being challenged by
I remember
that we don't have that one yet. All right, we're going.
I just rewatched that season the other day.
Now he's joining us,
reliving the 2016 thing.
1 minute after 2 in the morning. Hello, Ron Suskind. We're waiting for President Trump to speak, but we want to come to you.
Yeah, goddamn, he said he was going to speak like what, an hour and a half ago.
Your extensive reporting at some of the concerns expressed by people who were either in the administration or formerly in the administration about
it was
what
at least an hour ago,
in the days to come,
and he has not tweeted since.
Well, what we found, Judy, is I collected 24 or so sources, some outside of the administration in senior positions, but many inside the administration who are still there. And I think their concerns are shared, that the president, in a way, has thought about getting to the spot we're in right this very minute.
I think I'm going to interrupt you. I'm now told that President Trump is just about to speak. So I'm going to interrupt you now rather than even more abruptly in a few seconds. So hold on. Okay, so we're looking to see where the president is. I was told he was 30 seconds away. So this is where he is.
Is this in the hotel?
He's speaking. Okay, Ron, I'm told that you can keep talking, that the president is not 30 seconds away.
Okay.
But it's longer. You can. I'm going to let you watch as well, so you can see when he comes. You're going to need to be quiet. But finish your thought.
It kind of looks like the Oval Office in the background, but why would you fucking put all those flags in the Oval Office?
Over the last
also, it's another Hatch Act violation. He should not be using the White House for campaign bullshit. Just another way he completely breaks the law and flaunts it.
The core of those who are deeply committed to Trump are.
You can't tell me this isn't a racist fucking country.
Direction. That's what concerns people.
When the black man had to be like fucking squeaky clean in order to run for president.
Allied to Trump as an individual.
And then the next white guy elected.
And that's what they're worried about now.
Raped a fucking kid.
Which we're already into, in which they're going to be
on top of all the other bullshit he's done.
Over lots of arcana as to
money laundering, fraud,
constitutional dictates, or those of state legislatures.
Electioneering.
Allow for the counting of votes.
Campaign finance.
Options to use his might at this point and his powerful loyalists to create a lot of havoc that can overwhelm events. And that's why right now you're going to see the narrative. That's what's so interesting about what Trump is about to do. He already started with their stealing the election.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see.
I've been waiting for this.
Of the narrative that will last probably.
Couldn't even wear a tan suit. Couldn't put fucking Grey Poupon on his goddamn sandwich.
In some ways, is angling toward not necessarily.
I don't even think it was Grey Poupon. He asked for like spicy mustard or brown mustard or something. Yes.
rather not risk.
Yellow mustard sucks. Brown mustard is good.
And part of his strategy, according to people in the government who know him very well,
that's not stuck up.
Is part of what he's hoping to affect.
I'm a poor boy from Appalachia, and I like fucking spicy brown mustard too.
By Joe Biden, but close enough to fight, and to fight with all the power that the president now possesses.
Well, it's a very serious charge to say that they believe the president, or as you just said, you don't believe the president wants all the votes counted. I mean,
he doesn't.
It's inherent. It's part of the Constitution. It's our democratic system of government that the votes.
I mean, all you have to do is look at the court challenges his administration
a very, very serious
has thrown at the election already.
The president wants something other than that.
Well, it's interesting because when you talk to the senior officials, some of them talk about the president not really having a lot of acuity or respect for the Constitution. In many cases, when senior officials are first interviewed, the president says, I want you to take an oath to me as an individual. And they say, no, Mr. President, my oath to the Constitution of the United States. In many instances,
General Mattis called him a threat to the Constitution.
You work for me. And over the last year and a half, 2 years, he's worked very, very hard to get people who really are loyal to him, certainly above other loyalties. And that's, I think, part of what concerns so many of the folks who have worked for him. And I think that's why we're moving now into a new phase that is very, very different, a bit uncharted for us in the United States.
Fascist.
Where the president
use
all sorts of norm-shattering tactics, I believe. And I think that's fair to say, considering how he has shattered norms in so many ways that once applied
You're
to the
fucking dancing around it. He's going to be fascist.
Well,
we've actually got more returns in Georgia,
You
93%.
are sharing with us, and it's also striking to hear.
And it looks like it got even closer.
All night, the president seems to be holding his own in a majority of the states, and with voters, he won in 2016. If anything, he's enlarged his base. At this point in the counting, there are still a number of states that are out. We don't have those results, but at this point, the voters who have heard the president's message, who voted for him the last time, they're sticking with him, and they're sticking with him despite evidence that you've been describing. This is not a president who...
Because they'll tell you they're for the Constitution. They'll tell you they're for freedom. They'll tell you they're for freedom after they tell you exactly why a fucking immigrant kid should be locked in a cage.
I think it's fair to say, and I think historians would echo.
They'll tell you they're for the Constitution after they describe to you why a cop was correct to shoot somebody, an unarmed fucking black man.
You know, no one wore Bill Clinton's colors or walked around and say, I'm a Bushy. That's a very, very different phenomenon that Donald Trump, I think, is right at the center
of. A cult of personality.
Forged a powerful connection to the core of his support. Not everybody in the Trump community of voters, but to a significant part of that group. And I think what's going to be...
That's why I'm so glad I'm streaming, so I don't have to do the dance he's doing, to not call a spade, in order to appear impartial.
Wait a minute, let me just stop you there. When you say what they will do, what do you mean? You mean in support of the president, in doing something that's in defiance of the law? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they've done it countless times. They blocked a road. Tried to run a campaign bus off the road.
And he speaks to them often in a glowing fashion, won't repudiate them. It gives people great concern, and it has for several years now. You know, I mean, what's interesting is there is a quote in the story that I think...
Find people on both sides, even though there was no both sides. That was a neo-Nazi rally organized by neo-Nazis.
Said in some ways, what he's doing on that night at Walter Reed of taking off the mask, saluting to no one, having that moment, is one in which he is, in a way, having his supporters say, I will take a risk of danger to show my loyalty to you, to him. That's the quality of it. I think that's really quite accurate. It's a very deep bond. And I think what's going to be interesting now.
Now, this is always
whether or not
one of his tactics to tell the press that he's going on and then have them take the camera shot and then hold on it.
Way, based on what they think he wants. What they will do to affect the next.
He did that constantly in the 2016 campaign.
These are from folks who know the
To
president.
get CNN to just fucking freeze on the shot before he walked out.
Very, very, very interesting reporting. Ron Suskind joining us as we wait.
It's a tactic to suck the air out of the conversation.
Who's about to speak to his supporters in the wee hours of this Wednesday.
And that's probably like the tweet was the counter to Biden's speech to change the conversation, to get the journalists talking about Trump
Is that the old executive
again.
I can't quite tell what that room is.
The president's going to be speaking in the East Room.
In the East Room. Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't know.
See, I couldn't tell because of the flags.
Any sense of what he plans to say beyond
The East Shroom, it said on the closed captioning.
Everyone here at the White House is really on edge. The nation is waiting.
Exactly.
The president is going to prematurely declare victory, or if
Here he comes. They're
the
clapping.
all the votes to be counted, and it sounds like he's coming out right now.
And we will await. We do await the president. This is the East Room of the White House. It looks a little different than usual, which is why.
If he ends up as president, I'm not saying if he wins, he's not going to win.
Running for re-election has never spoken.
If he ends up still being the president, this is a pivotal moment. This is a piece of video that's going to be studied in classes for centuries to come. If we even have a fucking Earth.
George W. Bush, they all were.
I'm sorry, the planet will still survive
In the case of George W. Bush,
if we still have a
for
fucking
re-election in 2000.
biome that can sustain life.
But I believe this is correct, but spoke the next day at a hotel in downtown Washington, did not address the nation on election night or the wee hours from the White House. So this is a bit of an historic first for the president to be speaking as candidate Donald Trump, if you will.
Yeah, it's a violation of the Hatch Act.
President, but candidate Trump as well. Yamiche, we keep thinking the president's there. We saw applause. We heard applause. They're looking at something. Maybe they're looking at a TV screen with results and numbers going by that they're reacting to.
I'm surprised he
in the East Room. So
at some of his last rallies, he had completely replaced the United States flag with the Blue Lives flag.
Are favorable to the president. What we've seen tonight is something that we have not seen really in modern history, and that is that the president in the day after the election has already been labeled by Twitter as spreading misinformation about this election. Twitter labeled the tweet where President Trump was accusing Democrats without evidence of trying to steal the election as disputed. Twitter also said that this was misinformation about our election and civic process. Those are strong words coming from the social media company. But President Trump here is doing something that we expected him to do. That is, he is saying that Democrats are trying to do something wrong, that he's essentially saying that there might be voter fraud.
Yep, we've totally expected it.
To have some sort of nefarious agenda attached to this election. Of course, I know you were talking to Katie Walsh, who said that the president was not trying to say that there was some sort of widespread effort to change the election results. Exactly what the president is saying. He's saying that they're trying
Thank you for calling it out.
Over and over again. If he does not win this election, that it was rigged. That, of course, is not true. We do not see any evidence of voter fraud, any evidence of Democrats trying to steal the election. Now we have to see whether or not the president is going to get on that podium and say,
I'm sorry, I can't find the picture.
All Americans need to be patient, that all the votes should be counted.
I thought I had it
The
saved.
president is going to do something else and possibly throw our nation into a possible crisis, an election crisis, a political crisis, amid, of course, the crisis that we're already facing with the pandemic that has killed so many Americans in this country. The president this morning assured people, including on Fox News, saying that he was not going to declare victory unless there was a clear victory, that he was not going to say anything prematurely. We have to.
But he's going to come out and say, oh, here it is.
At the White House. And one other thing, I know, Judy, you've covered so many more presidents than me. This, of course, is a president who has floated all sorts of norms.
So there you go.
that the president had.
Usually, it would be the American flag behind him.
People over to the White House, essentially transforming the White House into
Completely fascist.
We also have now the White House press secretary, the sitting White House press secretary. She is doing double duty. She is also a Trump campaign advisor. We've also seen this White House really blur the lines when it comes to the Trump campaign and the White House. So over and over again,
She's telling it like it is right now.
Tonight we're seeing the president, in some ways, turning the East Room of the White House into a campaign event.
Exactly, and as I risk of repeating myself, we believe this is the first time in modern history that a president has spoken from the White House on the occasion of his reelection. Every other president since Ronald Reagan has done this, has spoken, but they've done it from their hometown, or in the case of one president, spoken from a hotel in Washington, D.C. But you're right, Yamiche, and we await the president's words, because so much of what happens in the coming hours and days will depend on the frame that these.
I'm looking at this from a historical context.
To come in, will there be challenges? We heard Katie Walsh, who's formerly at the White House, then at the RNC.
What he is getting ready to say will be played in classrooms for years and years to come.
Accuse the Democrats of stealing, that he's referring to stories about assorted ballots that were found here and there. These are very scattered incidents involving very few ballots, and so small as if to be completely dismissed by election security experts. So nothing that amounts to fraud or theft of an election. So we will see what evidence, if any, the president cites, if he brings that up. But I will say again that what the president is following.
I'm sure it's going to be an amazing word salad, whatever the fuck he's going to come out here and spew for.
This was about, actually a little more.
I hope he keeps it short, but he probably won't. We're probably going to hear 10, 15 minutes of him whining.
About where we are, we really do. He said, I believe we're on track to win this election. We knew there would be, because a number of votes were coming in so early at an unprecedented rate, we knew the vote would take a while. He said, quote, it ain't over till it's over, until every vote is counted. And I'm reading this because we're going to be, in a moment, hearing from the president. He said, we feel confident about Arizona. He said, we're still in the game in Georgia. He said, we still are feeling good about Wisconsin and Michigan. And he said, we are going to win in Pennsylvania. I think he said in Philly, but meant Pennsylvania. So that's an optimistic, and he went on to say, I feel optimistic about the outcome. So that's the table that Joe Biden has set as we wait to hear what
they're chanting.
Will say. It's interesting, Amy Walter, who's here with me at the table, that the White House said he would speak at 2 o'clock. Maybe they're waiting for another call. It's now 2:18 a.m. in the East.
Maybe.
Is this a little pump?
Coming in, unclear.
Waiting
going on there.
Waiting for something else. I'm trying.
This is his strategy. He's done it a million times.
2000 election, which is a kind of a nightmare in the back of my head. I try not to think about it very often. But where we had called the Florida race. I happened to be working for CNN at the time, but the race had been called one way for Florida, and then it was pulled back. The national race was called, and that was pulled back. There was a concession call by Al Gore,
and then that was called back, and then he uncalled his concession
and
speech.
we were carrying it all and reporting moment by moment by moment, a little bit like what we're doing now, although it's a very different scenario and a very different set of circumstances.
That's right.
And
again,
20 years
so
later.
much of it is driven by this early vote. That we really, and again, 3 states that don't normally have early vote: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And so this is all brand new for them.
Yeah, well, while we are waiting for the president, we're going to bring in our friends at the other side of the studio, Amna Nawaz and Lisa Desjardins. I'm going to ask you both to bring us sort of up to speed on what we know at this point while we wait for President Trump.
Yeah, Judy, I just want to underscore something that Amy just mentioned as well about the fact that we are undergoing.
Also, I don't ever want to call him president ever again.
Right now, obviously, we spoke to.
I hate the idea that we allow officials to keep their titles after they're out of office.
Basically, a 20.
Like how they call Vice President Biden. Like, no, he should be Joe Biden until he has a title again.
Unprecedented numbers in the number.
Like that's something fucking like lords and monarchs and shit do to get to keep your title after you're no longer serving the position. We need to do the fuck away with that.
We're keeping an eye on over the hours, and certainly according to officials there on the ground.
Well, there's Don Jr.
Some results, guys. Come on, let's pep it up. I know we're waiting for the president, but we
Is
actually
that Tiffany?
results that are important coming
There's
in.
Eric, Ivanka,
Democrats have had more incumbents fall. In
Kayleigh McEnany. It's the whole fucking crew.
Colin Peterson, the House Agriculture Chair,
did win the election. He threatened.
Do you have any good recipes?
Go to the Supreme Court. He said words to the effect, we want no more ballots counted. We want the voting to stop because we don't want them to find a ballot in the wee hours of the morning. In fact, the voting is not complete in a number of states, 8 or 9 or 10 states. We are still waiting.
Take solace in the fact that every court challenge that he has thrown at this election thus far, or almost everyone that I can think of, has failed. The courts have smacked him down.
Continue to be counted. That was in contrast to what President Trump said when he.
But I mean, it's clear he's going to try to go to the Supreme Court.
Did win the election. And
So I'm going to assume he's going to file something in state court in Pennsylvania tomorrow.
Enough of a remarkable.
Now the thing is the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania is blue. The state legislature in Pennsylvania is red.
To show what results we have at this hour, what's left to be
So
counted.
possibly in a state where he has a more favorable state Supreme Court.
States or not. Let's
Because they need to, in order to make that happen, they're going to have to kick it up to the Supreme Court. So you have to file a challenge in state court first.
He doesn't know what happened. The fact is, what's happened is the votes are still being counted.
Joe Biden is going to win the election. There's no question about that.
Close to a political
Whether Trump remains president or not, through the machinations that he just laid out that we've been talking about for weeks, that is yet to be seen.
What we do know, in fact, is that states are still counting ballots as they have in elections in the past when they go past Election Day. The president is declaring that he is going to go to the Supreme Court. He says he is convinced that he will win at the Supreme Court. This, of course, is connected.
Well, he just packed the Supreme Court.
Confirmed a 6-3 conservative majority on the court, with, of course, the last Supreme Court justice being Amy Coney Barrett. The Democrats were very worried that this scenario would happen, that the president would have some sort of Election Day dispute. He would then go to the Supreme Court, and one of the justices who was nominated and confirmed during the election might cast a ballot to help President Trump win a
Trump will stay as president.
Several things that are not true.
Yeah, you're a dumb fuck. You can't type a fucking cogent sentence. That's why you fucking fell for Trump's bullshit.
America is the bedrock of our society. It's what other countries look at.
Because goddamn, as I say every fucking day, right-wingers are morons. And you can buy the shirt at the FREAKIN shop.
A lot of anxiety going into this election. That the
Right below.
Just what he just did at the White House, Judy. It was stunning. It was unprecedented. And we're going to have to really dig into where we go from here, because the president is confident that he will essentially be able to win election, while Joe Biden says that he has several paths that he can win this election.
Oh, I'm sorry if I was making fun of your English and it's not your first language.
The president at one point said we were about.
My apologies.
And all of a sudden it was called off, meaning the voting.
You can speak more languages than me. You're clearly not a dumb fuck.
John, we're going to want to know what the Biden campaign.
So sorry about that, chili hacker. Now, do you have any good chili recipes?
Well, they've been saying all along that this was going to take more than tonight. That this is the vote. That all the votes have to be counted. And also, I just want to point out, the president said that a group of sad people are trying to disenfranchise the Trump voters. But the fact of the matter is that there have been, in this pre-election period, there have been a number of suits trying to exclude ballots from being counted. All of those suits,
once again,
were brought by Republicans and the Republican Party.
Projection.
I don't know of a
accuse the other side of what you are guilty of.
To exclude ballots from being counted. But the Biden campaign's position.
Do you guys even have chili
goes on. The president
in Europe? Is that a thing?
That the voting has to stop.
Or is that an American thing?
Can't be continued to be voted. But these ballots were voted before Election Day. There are a number of states that even before the pandemic had in their laws a period after Election Day waiting for ballots to arrive, and they would be counted as long as they were not, as long as they were postmarked.
Do you have chili in Russia?
They were cast before election.
I just saw you said you speak UK, English. I assume those are the same things. German, Italian, Spanish, and French. So I just said, like, do you have chili in Europe? I mean, that wasn't a odd statement, was it?
That they will end up being.
Oh, okay. My bad.
That is right. That is what we heard Vice President Biden.
I keep trying to denigrate you, and like I'm getting it wrong. There's a language barrier. I'm sorry, but please answer my question. Do you guys have chili over there?
President Trump. John and Yamiche, thank you. I want to go down the list now of the states that we are waiting for results from, states where the vote count is not complete. And that is,
you have
states have not been called yet for either President Trump or for Joe Biden. Let's start with the state of Georgia. As you can see, this is the count at this hour at 2:37.
Is it like American chili like this?
Expected vote in.
Or is it different?
It does have a small lead in the state of Georgia, 51% to 48%, but there is still 7%.
I didn't mean to hit that one that time.
I don't know where it is. That vote is being very carefully counted, as we've heard from our own Miles O'Brien, who's in one of the central voting count places there in Fulton County.
So we're up to 93%.
Let's look now at the state of North Carolina.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The president cited. 94% of the vote is in. The president does here have a small lead. It looks to be about 75 to 80,000 votes by my quick math. But again, 6% of the vote is yet to be counted. We don't know where that's from, and we want to wait and see the total vote count. We want every vote to be counted, of course, before.
God damn, 80,000 votes.
That's the way the system
70,000 votes.
The state of Maine, that's a race that has not been called. 85% of the vote is of the expected.
That's another one of the proportional
Joe
ones.
Biden is leading now, but that race has not been called because, again, they don't have enough votes, information for the AP to make the call. In the state of Pennsylvania, Action Central, if you will. This is the state where President
Action Central
stated that he is far ahead and cast doubt on any view that it would that the late arriving or early, I should say, early votes would make a difference.
700,000 with 35% of the vote. Most of it mail-in. That's not far ahead.
56 to 43. Most of those votes, though, are votes that were cast today on Election Day. There are many thousands of votes. We don't know how many that have yet to be counted. So that's another state. We're waiting for the vote.
I have a friend that is usually on the stream.
80% of the vote is in. At this point,
named Pumpkin. She made some white chili one time with chicken.
He said we don't know, but
it caused me to have to shit in the front yard.
If we want it, but right now they don't have.
I have asked her multiple times for the recipe for the chili
here you have
that made me shit in her front yard.
The president is ahead at this point with 53%, as you see, to Joe Biden's 45%. That vote continues to be counted, it's my understanding.
No dispute here.
I do believe Pennsylvania has stopped in one or two.
It's definitely not better for the U.S. if Trump wins. That's why I did my civic duty, and for the first time in over a decade, voted for a Democrat for president.
As you see, only 71% of the vote.
I am proud of that vote, and I am confident
9% of the vote yet to come.
that he is going to win.
President Trump is declared the winner. We don't have enough information yet to know. The state of Wisconsin, another key state. The president won it the president won it in 2016. Joe Biden has fought very hard to win it back. Here you have 91%.
I think Russia has its own issues.
It does have a 4 percentage point.
Especially with the uprisings in places like Belarus.
Make these calls are waiting for enough votes to come in. So
I'm sure Putin is
for the other candidate to win.
not as confident in his ability to hang on to power as he has been maybe 10 years ago.
But only 67% of the vote, expected vote, is in.
Which is one of the reasons why he poisoned his opposition leader.
Is being weighted. The call is. We're waiting for the call. As we should, until every vote is counted. So this accusation by President Trump that someone has stepped in and he said they suddenly called it off is simply not.
Well, let's see what Facebook looks like now, shall we?
Each one of these states, each state is responsible for its own count. The people in charge of the vote count, they're either continuing the count through the night or they have announced that they are taking a break. They're going to get a couple of hours of sleep, come back fresh in the morning, and resume the count. There's no evidence of fraud, no evidence.
I will be making a statement tonight. A big win.
So we are reporting on what the president said, but we also are reporting that much of what he said is incorrect. There is no fraud evident. There is no win, and this is in Pennsylvania, I'm told. I think in Philadelphia. I saw this picture earlier today. I was watching the count. So the count goes on in parts of Pennsylvania. I think there's some counties in Pennsylvania, in fact, in the rural areas, that said they were going to stop. But as you see in the city of Philadelphia, they continue to count. I'm going to bring in two folks who've been with us.
I want to go to the most recent. Let's see.
Gary Abernathy, you are with us, is that right? In Cincinnati, Ohio. Gary,
Yes,
can you please explain to me what the president is talking about when he says that there's fraud being, this is a fraud being committed on the American people? All that's happened is the vote count is not completed.
Yes. No, I cannot.
The bias they've seen from Newsmax.
In the middle of that speech during NBC News.
He is right. What happened with the networks stopping their projections was unprecedented, and it's going to anger a lot of Republicans.
So I just got a text from one of our colleagues who was saying in the middle of that speech during NBC News' coverage, Savannah Guthrie was cutting in to try to fact check him. Again, it's like they just can't stop, and this.
Well, yeah, because he was spewing a bunch of bullshit. I kept cutting in during his speech to fact check him. Because he just can't stop lying. Stop gaslighting the American people, Sean Spicer. You sniveling piece of shit.
This just shows the problem. They don't want to, it's almost like they want to ignore how wrong they were tonight.
Really.
It's almost like you want to ignore facts.
Right, and that's the problem, is that Mark's absolutely right. Tonight, President Trump showed...
Is that Mark Halperin? The motherfucker that got fired for sexual assault? Used to be a reputable journalist, and now he's on fucking Newsmax? Is that who? It is Mark Halperin. Fucking shit.
Wrong, right? Mm-hmm. We know that from the podcast. But we definitely know that from the electoral vote. Regardless of how this thing ends up, there was a lot of people that were wrong. And I think what we did here at Newsmax was let people understand.
I called this completely right, other than getting a couple of states wrong on my map.
What to think and what we thought was going to happen. We let everyone watch it. And a problem is now is that places like NBC News can't admit they were wrong, so they've got to figure out how to go on to that next battle.
And let's be honest, a lot of America went to bed tonight. If they were watching those other networks, they're going to wake up with a different reality than what they were told going to bed last night. Yeah. If they went to bed at 10 o'clock at night, they're going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, what happened and what I was basically lied to last night.
No! What? Well, I mean, I don't know what fucking NBC was saying. But yes, the American people were lied to by the president from the East Room of the White House. Yeah, we are really in uncharted territory. It's going to be interesting to see which state he picks to throw a challenge at, or if he picks multiple states. That may very well happen. We might see challenges in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, with the hopes that just one of them makes it to the Supreme Court. And no, ladies and gentlemen, in the scenario that a Supreme Court decision stops the count and Trump remains president, I will not accept those results. And neither will my friends. And we will be in the streets. I am tired of democracy being subverted in this country. And I have heard right-wingers talk about how we're not a democracy, we're a republic. Like dumb fucks. We are a republic that elects our representatives by democratic vote. And I personally always advocate for more democracy. It's what this country was founded on, technically. Taxation without representation. Now, that was a lie. They didn't actually believe that. But in the 200 plus years that we have existed, it has been a march towards more democracy. Almost 250 years. I was trying to do the math in my head there. And we've always looked at that as wins. Giving more people democracy. Even if it's not an overwhelming win for Democrats, fortunately, Democrats are going to hold on to the House of Representatives, and they're going to be able to draw the maps this time. Because whoever holds the House of Representatives, every 10 years when the census is taken, gets to draw the congressional districts. And it has been the Republicans the last 2 times. And they've drawn the maps to favor themselves. So thank God, at least that's something we're going to take from this election. That finally the Democrats are going to be able to draw the maps again. And hopefully fix a little bit of the gerrymandering that's been going on. A lot of the gerrymandering that's been going on. Scattered protests are breaking out. Oh shit, I'm gonna have to come back to that video. I showed a picture of that train on the show last night. Arizona, Montana, and South Dakota all vote to legalize the use of marijuana? Fuck yeah. With a Democratic administration, we might be able to get it legalized on the federal level. That would be nice. I would love it if somebody would challenge the state laws, kick it up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court just like, yeah, pot's legal everywhere, but not very likely with the current Supreme Court makeup. Notice the difference between, like, this is a legitimate news source. Follows up with the election has not been called yet. And contrast that with a right-wing rag like the Washington Times. Trump vows to take election fight to the Supreme Court. Tout to win in key states. Says he will fight election in Supreme Court. Huh, that's a weird headline. Indeed. That's been a tactic of fascists for decades. I would assume wearing more than one surgical mask at a time makes you safer, but it does actually become harder to breathe. I know this because I wore 2 surgical masks to the polls today. Because I live in a state that doesn't take the coronavirus seriously at all and is seeing an incredible spike right now. Whoa, Sierra just told us about psilocybin mushrooms. I didn't know the opportunity to decriminalize all drugs. Fuck, I really am moving to Oregon, aren't I? Alright guys, it's been a long night. I don't think there's going to be any more news happening tonight. If there is, I probably will jump back on and start the stream up again. But I'm thinking we'll know in the morning, midday sometime, about one of the... We'll know first thing in the morning what kind of court challenges the administration is throwing at this. I want to say Pennsylvania just because the lead is so great. But once again, the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania was appointed by Democrats mainly. So I don't think that court is likely to kick the case up for the appellate court. Like there's a whole series of things that have to happen. Trump has to challenge in a court and lose. Then appeal that loss. And it goes to the state Supreme Court. Now, I would assume he would win in the state Supreme Court. And then that would require a challenge from the other side to kick it up to a federal appellate court, in which Trump would hope to lose, so that it would go to the Supreme Court so he could win. I think I got that right. But that's a lot of the ways that when you hear right-wingers talk about bringing suit, they usually want to lose. Like discrimination suits with gay people, they want to lose so that they can kick it up to the Supreme Court and win. Well, I was wrong. We do have some news. Arizona called for Joe Biden. We were pretty certain that was going to happen. USA Today has not updated yet, but that puts Joe Biden's totals at 236 to 213. Probably 240 add in Maine's for electoral votes. $47-47 in the Senate right now. Six remaining seats at stake. That's a nail-biter. It's kind of disheartening. I was hoping that the Democrats would do a lot better in the Senate. I did my part. God damn, did I ever promote the hell out of Marquita Bradshaw, out of Doug Jones, out of Jamie Harrison. All right. It's been a fun night. It's been a long one. But you know how we do. Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm Justin Freakin. We'll see you tomorrow night. Oh, hold up. We'll see you later today on the Troll Patrol.